Familiarity with oneself and understanding how you work is paramount.
Oh no, for sure.
And I feel like it most certainly does give you insight into other humans. But it would be so interesting to just know, like, what is it like to be someone else? This is a weird world.
I had to explain it.
Let's go.
Oh, let's go. And they'd be like, what's it called? Like the feedback on my mic.
Hey, yeah.
There we go.
Pretty much on you. You just want it to be close enough for you to be able to hear yourself through the headphones.
Let's go.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Thank you for popping in here today.
Of course.
Tell me about this cult.
No, the cult? I mean, the book club.
That's where we need to start. Oh, is it really just a book club?
So it's not necessarily, I mean, it is a book club at its core. So like our only rule is like you have to read one chapter of the day. So like I just based it off of like what I've already done. I'll talk about that later. But like, you know how it is. But like, it first started because one of our friends was like, oh, like I read every day. Like that's one of the things I do. So like I read a chapter of a book every day. And like that's one of my non-negotiable disciplines.
Oh.
So like I've read more books in the past like year than I've read in my entire life. Like,
Okay.
You know what I mean? In like elementary school, like remember our reading logs and shit?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
I'd be like, Mom, please sign it. And I'd just be like
That's
skimming.
hilarious. See, we had AR reading.
What does the
like-
AR stand for?
I think it was accelerated reading.
Okay, yeah.
So pretty much they had a sticker system where there were a bunch of smiley face stickers on the side of the book, and they ranged in colors. And so purple was like really, really hard all the way down to like yellow, which is very, very easy. Meaning purple would probably be like a Harry Potter book.
Yeah.
And then the yellows would be some fucking Berenstain Bears or something like that. Just something real, real small, tiny you could get through very, very fast. So me always trying to figure out a way to do the least amount of work possible would read a bunch of itty bitty bitty books to try to get the amount of points that we needed or were expected of us.
What's it called? Get the quantity in.
Yeah.
So where would Diary of a Wimpy Kid put you on there? Like, is that in the middle?
Exactly. That would be probably like orange.
Yeah, because that's what I would like. I remember reading Diary of a Wimpy Kid. I used to think like middle school and high school were going to be like Diary of a Wimpy Kid. So I was like, damn, this is how it's going to be? Like, am I going to be Greg or Allie? I mean, of course I wouldn't do it, but like.
No, but I understand. So you're 21. Yeah, I get that. I think that's probably around the time, maybe a little bit before, but around the era where I started like going book crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Not no Diary of a Wimpy Kid, just self-help books?
No. Yeah, at that point in time, I was like searching. I was, you start trying to figure out like who you are and what it
you're
is
really
you
doing.
want to, what you're really doing, who you want to be, all that sort of stuff. So then, I mean, if that's what you're thinking about. And so you start searching. So yeah, there were tons. There's so many books. There's so many books to read. There's so many like inspiring books. And, there's certain people that also don't like to read books at all. And they go find it in other ways. And I'm not one to speak down on those people, but I will say that it's wild to open a book and be reading. If you ever have the experience of reading through a page and a certain line hits, and in real time you can feel your mind expanding.
Yeah.
It's like, holy shit, I never thought of it that way, or what or just the sheer inspiration or whatever it is that you're looking at just gave you some new neural pathways.
Yeah, it just opens up.
Yeah, and you're like, whoa, that's crazy that can happen from reading words on a sheet of paper. That's insane that symbolism can attack you like that.
Yeah, because I just keep my highlighter on me. So like I'll read, like I try to get it done before. So I was like, I'll be at before practice. I'll go keep my highlighter on me. I send like pictures to the group chat. I'm like, yo, this shit hit. You know what I mean?
Oh, so like, you're constantly annotating, or you're just highlighting?
Yeah, I'm just highlighting it just so like I can remember it. Last book we read, well, like I'll explain it. So we read pretty much self-help books, finance, philosophy, all like that. So we started with, well, like the rule is like, so Sammer, I'm just gonna say his name because like, he's gonna be on here. Yeah, he'll be on here, but like he'll tell you the story. Like he was like, I want to start reading, so I'm gonna be like, so I was like, okay, would it help you if I read with you every day? right? So like I'm gonna reread Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins with him. So I was reading it with him. Then we're like, oh, maybe we should get some people, like we get all the bad motherfuckers we know. So it's like I hit up Tony. It was like before I left. He was like Tony. We hit up Kristen, and we get this little group together.
Yeah.
Go out to eat, and then you start talking. You're like, damn, we're having a podcast talk. Like we're talking about some real shit right now. So it's like. Then it started, like, we, like, barely talked about the book about, like, at that time. But, like, we would talk about life and then relate it to the book. So, the last book we read was Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. So, we were debating that. Like, Sammer was talking about, like, how he just wants to be happy. And he was like, about the emotional side. He's like, I just like being emotional. And because, like, he was like, being a stoic is not necessarily.
Yeah.
So, we talked about that. We were in Wegmans. Like, you know, like you can go upstairs in Wegmans type.
No, I did not know that you could do that.
Well, there's some places where we can go sit down. So we sat down, we talked about it, got some snacks, and we when we did this other thing. So like I basically made the framework that I used for like the last year. So like the first thing would be an adjective to describe yourself. So I was like previously I was like, I wanted to be a badass, right? So like everything I did revolved around being a badass. You can win or lose and still be a badass. So it was like, that was the adjective. That was like the split second decision if you read Can't Hurt Me. So like as soon as you get in that state where like you want to quit, like, oh, I'm a badass. Right now I'm a professional, right? It's like I like professionalism. So it's like, oh, what do professionals do? Like that's what I would use. And then we would make an emotional goal, like maybe identify envy, guilt or something. Like identify your temper because most of the people have a temper in there. We worked in the restaurant industry. We understand what happens when you get stressed. And then yeah, so it's like little things.
You've been
like,
working three doubles back to back.
Yeah, it's like, you're starting to lose it now. So it's like building up the awareness of things. So not necessarily, we're just identifying it first and then we'll think about it, right? And so like during that time, we read Atomic Habits. So it's like learning how to make habits, how to get rid of habits or like, basically being disciplined.
Yep.
Then we make a physical goal, like, because, a strong body, strong mind. Physical, financial one is a big one because most of us are pretty young or getting into that. It's like what's it called? That period of life where this shit starts to matter. So we're reading Tony Robbins' book Unstoppable right now. Okay. Actually, today's the last chapter. So it's like talking about 401ks, investing, and like stuff like that. And it's like, I'll be honest, like I didn't even know what I knew what a 401k is, but like I didn't really know much about it. And I'm starting to get that was one of my New Year's resolutions was like to get my finances in check. Okay. You know what I mean? Because I want to be a millionaire by 35 and like I have the discipline now. It's like, oh, I'm like looking at it, I'm like, okay, that's very doable. And we got to put away this much. And I had a pretty good start because I did the right things throughout my college years. So it's not too bad.
Didn't go blow it all.
No. Yeah. And I've worked a lot. So it's like,
But that's always good about working a lot because you have less time to run around.
Yeah, you do stupid shit. So it's like, and I was like, I don't know. I was like, I'm not going to draw my time. I mean, it was a joke, but like, I'm not going to draw my time either way. So I'm just going to go work and make some money. Yeah. And we ended up having, like, it sucked most of the time, but we had a lot of fun at work. So.
Yeah. No. It seems like, I mean, the restaurant industry is that. When people don't know about it, like you don't know about it.
Yeah.
But the restaurant industry is a very unique, particular industry.
Oh, no,
a lot of very interesting personalities. As we talked about, anywhere where you put a bunch of people for long periods of time with each other, they're going to start to mingle, create relationships, and then there are going to be fallouts, there's going to be fights, there's going to be romances, there's going to be everything you can think of whilst there's still the job happening at the same time. Yeah. So, the restaurant industry is crazy. And then, the point that you've touched on that I've talked about before is just people going crazy because you're working. People often feel like they're servants, not servers, right? And then they're treated certain ways. And like our friend, I'll just say his name actually, is Brian.
Yeah.
He was saying that there was this lady that was just like, could you clean up these plates? You don't want it to affect your tip now. You know what I mean? So some people feel like that's the energy that they're constantly in. So doing that, having social anxiety on top of that, working back to back hours, day after day, that'll put you in a certain mental state. So I think that it's great that you guys got this little thing going together because you can see that common thread between all of you, Sammer, Tony, like Kristen. They all of y'all are. I mean, we're just. You guys are going to be the Avengers,
of course. And you know Alex Hormozy is.
Wait, Alex.
He's like an entrepreneur. He's in the podcast space as an entrepreneur, but like he has this thing about like the lonely chapter. So it's like, but when you are, or Chris Williamson, Modern Wisdom too, talks about this.
Okay. That
lonely chapter where like you're like getting away from your initial group of friends because you're starting to build new habits, but you're not good enough to be with the big dogs. So like there's that period in the middle where like you're not friends with anyone because you're not really relating to anyone, but like your old friends are like, oh, you're too good for us now. But the big dogs are like, what's it called? I don't like, you know what I mean? You're not shit yet. So it's like it gets rid of that, and most people aren't willing to be alone for that long. So like I've been in that state for a long time. So like I don't mind being alone. I like going to Chipotle, doing my thing. You know what I mean? Watching my video.
That's why you're mysterious.
Yeah.
See, this may take away some of the mystique.
Yeah.
For anyone that does watch it and then has been wondering who the fuck is this mysterious? Who is this mysterious guy walking around?
What's it called? Just come to work, get the shit done, and then
walk out. They're just like, is he mean? Is he nice? Does he like me? Is he like, I don't understand. Like, what's going on with this guy? They have no idea. Yeah, no, that's pretty cool, man. I think that you guys are you guys are trying to, I get it. And you're young, so now is definitely the time.
Oh, no, for sure.
Now is definitely the time. How did, I know that Sam with the Marcus Aurelius thing felt like I think is he writing a paper on the reemergence of contemporary Stoicism?
Yeah, English 302, which is advanced composition. We all have to take it for like our core classes, and it's like catered to your, major in a sense.
I want to read that paper. I want to know about the reemergence of Stoicism and how people are feeling about that right now.
Yeah, funny, like when I did it, I took that class like a year ago. I did mine on winning cultures in business. So like, and what's it called? I did a podcast with my friend too. Like we just made it. It was so bad. And like it was on Skype. It was like, oh yeah. But like it was one of my friends who I played football with when I was little. Well, like we were friends for a long time. So it's like, we both we played with each other through the winning. Then we got to high school. It didn't go exactly how we planned, but we worked super hard and like we remember all that. And then we both went to play college sports and then get into really good cultures. And then we talked about how it was at each level, and it was pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I will say on that last point that you had, there's definitely that stage. Like it's just natural. Like you're getting out of high school, you know, you're trying to do something different. You're trying to become more disciplined. You're trying to like serve a higher self down the road.
Yeah.
And there's just going to be certain things that you're doing that people are not going to understand, you know, because it's not a common way of life.
Of course. And like people are like, oh, you want to come out with us? You're like, nah, I got shit to do. You know what I mean? That's what I used to talk about. Is like, I never missed a day. Like, as I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't do anything. But like, I've always felt like I was moving forward every day. So it's like, I mean, and then people know me from that, like all my friends. So it's like, they don't even like, I mean, they ask me, but they know.
They respect.
If I do coming out like on the blue moon, like New Year's or whatever, I don't drink, but like, we're going to still have fun.
Yeah.
It's not like I'm a party pooper, but like, they know what we're doing.
Yeah. You're not just like out, like sitting in the corner, just like, oh, why the fuck am I here? Yeah. Of course not. No. But they also respect you. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, we used to have this joke, like, in high school, like one of my friends, like parents got a lease on a new house and like they moved in, but they still had it. So they would have parties, but they would like bring a Coca-Cola for me. You know what I mean? Put it unopened, because I'll be like, no, why'd you open it? You trying to because it was a joke of that time, so it was kind of funny.
Yeah, no, that's a fact. No, don't ever take any.
No, yeah, don't do that.
Yeah, don't do that. Yeah, man. But it's exciting though. But you gotta. A lot of people get trapped in, and I've seen this where they want to do other things.
Yeah,
but it's like the people around them, they won't make that leap. They will not leave those people. They don't want those people to, because the unknown is very scary for a lot of people.
Yeah.
So it's like so it's like if I go into this next space where I don't know people and it's new to me, I don't know the territory. I just don't know. I'd much rather, like, right here is comfortable. I know these people. I know that they don't expect much of me. I know, you know, and you just stay right there. So it's a hell of a journey going on.
It's like a great comfort in being average.
For sure. It's masses. It's masses. Like but that's a biological thing. That's an evolutionary biological type of deal there, that you feel comfortable within the masses because you know that there's strength in numbers. So you're like, listen, I don't want to be that 1, 2, 3 people going off into that direction alone off into the wilderness. Like, I'm going to stay with the pack. Like, that looks scary. That looks wild. So you just stay with the pack. It makes all the sense in the world. Like, I don't want to just run off and go do that, all that extra shit. Like, she sent me, Vaughn Marie sent me a video from David Goggins' account, I guess, and it was his wife recording him. And she was like, I just wanted to show you guys what it's like living with this guy, you know, because a lot of people may think that he's bullshitting and that he just like, we do these little clips or whatever. She's like, we got out of the gym today and he said he was going to go on a 100-mile run.
Yeah.
So we're out here. I've been driving behind him for 12 hours. This is him. He's out here. This is a real thing. And he's on a path that, I mean, that's a very unique path.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But he's, as you've heard him talk about, fighting through demons. Like, he's going through years and years of demon fighting in his mind whilst he's on these runs. So he's doing a very, very different thing. I'm certain to have a real relationship with David Goggins, you got to be doing certain things.
Yeah, because he's going to hold you accountable. Because he has this thing, like, he's like, don't tell me you want to be a doctor. Don't tell me if you want to run a marathon because I'm going to sign your ass up the next day. You know what I mean? And then it's going to be 5:30 and we're going to get up and go do it. So, and it was like, I think that's so funny because, like, that's the people I want around me. Because it's like, you always feel like you're a big fish in a little pond most of the time because it's like everyone's just telling you how great you are. So, like, I would just, like, you know what I mean? That's how I always kind of felt. Because, like, I'll be doing normal shit and I'll be like, oh my God, you're doing so much. And I'm like waking up and doing the things you're supposed to do is like the bare minimum of actually doing shit.
It's funny because member of this, do you guys have a name for this?
I just, like, you say, oh, we could be like either Spartan, because I always like Spartans, like, especially in Halo. So it's like, Spartans never die. Like, I always, like, you know, like, that was one of my big games when I played. So it's like either Spartan or Black Flag book club.
Okay. So another member of Spartan/Black Flag is Tony. So when she was talking to me one day about the fact that, you know, she was reading, she got, you know, all these books for her for Christmas, I think it was.
Yeah.
And I think Jocko Willink was in there, you know.
Stream Ownership.
Yeah, all of those in there. And she was telling me about how she just started waking up and she was like, yeah, I'm going to try to wake up early and go on like a mile run or something like that. And someone was walking past and was like, what? Like, you're going to do what in the morning? Like, oh man, like, congratulations for you. Couldn't be me.
Yeah.
And just kept walking. And I'm like, look, Tony, like, you're already, because sometimes when you're on the inside, it's hard to see. So you need people to point stuff out. I'm like, you are already having certain conversations. Like, things are coming out of your mouth that other people are looking at you in awe about.
Yeah.
You're like, just because you decided to start making these decisions, like, this is the start of your journey, but just the fact that you're even starting and you're doing things like waking up and deciding to go on a mile run, 2-mile run, like, you're already being looked at the way that you're looking at other people, you know, trying to get further onto your journey, whether it be David Goggins or Jocko Willink or whoever the case is. And you're wondering, how do they do what they do? Someone's thinking that of you right now. It's like, how do you even get up at 5 or 6 in the morning and go on a run? Like, why
would you do that?
What would
that
compel you to do that? That's not fun.
Yeah. But and she is doing, you have to bring her on too. She is doing.
Dude, I want her to come on. She's just shy.
Next meeting, I'll hammer it. But she has been doing that. Doesn't mean, of course, it's going to be a rough journey like anything else. And like I always talk to her because around that same time, I started talking to her too. Mm-hmm. Like, I said something and she was like, what? It was like, because I was talking about when you truly get after and you go home and you just sit on the couch for 20 minutes and you just sit there and you're like, life's good. Because we always have we talk about that because I run track. So it's like kind of like not like a rough sport, but like we have a joke when we're like, our sport is the other sport's conditioning. So like most of the time what we're doing every day, it kind of sucks. And like, I mean, it's just the way it is. But like the identity I have now is like, I like that. Like, that's the fun part for me.
Wow, that is interesting. So, like, I didn't think about that. Yeah, like what we do, like our whole sport,
it's like
is conditioning for other people's sports. Like, this is what they try to do just to get ready to go.
No, yeah. And build that base.
And we're constantly doing that work. Wow.
So I always have this joke, or not a joke, but like I always think about it. It's like, you can read all these books, and I'm like, so like when I read Can't Hurt Me or the first time, I was like, I can actually utilize this because I know 3 times out of the week, I know I'm going to go encounter the quitting mind. And like to the point where like, oh, I'm laying on the all fours in the public bathroom. You know what I mean? Like stuff you would never think you're doing because you've never been to that point. Because like we always say, it's like, oh, you walk around, look at all the normal people, and they're like, they don't do what we do every day. It's like you can go from like the best of best and then to like the real shit where like running, like sprinting as fast as you can for as long as you can is like your body shutting down. Like to me, like I can stomach the zone 2. I can go forever. Like that's one of the things, but like running, like you can run to a point where like you're just going to fall apart.
Yeah.
And it's like you get there and you're like, oh, damn, it's like you really like you can't like break it. So it's like I always wonder like how, like not how, but like what's going through their mind in those points. Because it's like I know for a fact it's like most people are faking it. So like we all, like I always fake being stoic about it. You know what I mean? I feel like shit, but I'm faking it. But like, I always had the joke. It's like, I have to go in the bathroom to put my hands on my knees. Cause like, I'm in that position on my team. It's like, oh, we can't be seen doing that. Cause like, I'm like the integrity guy. Like, oh, we have 2 sets. We're going to go do 2 sets. So it's like, I don't know. That's always think about it.
I'll tell you what, I think David had this story where there was this, I think it was kind of like a stand moment. It was like this boy had reached out to him, and by the time he had reached back out to this little boy that sent him a message or a card or something like that, like he ended up getting in touch with the parents, and the parents said that he had committed suicide.
Yeah, I remember that.
And I believe he said that's probably one of a million things that pushes him to keep going, because he'll think about things like that and be like, I want to be strong for as many people as I mean, what's interesting about this is it's funny how powerful story is.
Yeah.
We're legitimately watching like the origin story of a superhero. That's pretty much what it is. Like, he had a very, very rough upbringing. Abuse all up and through the house. Like, it was bad, right?
It was like a real movie.
Yeah. And so he grows up trying to create a space for himself and as many other people as possible to be as strong as they possibly can to get through anything that they need. Like, you can see that work. You're just like, oh, he had this upbringing. He went through Navy. Okay, boom, 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 boom. And then you see how he got to where he is. So I think that's something. Is how can I can't take a day off. Like, how can I? Like, I have to do it for the people that can't do it. Like, that's some of the mindset. So you just kind of hack into that brain, and you're like, I'm just gonna keep going until I guess until I die. Like, till this is no longer working anymore. Because he has no cartilage in his meniscus.
Yeah,
like he's just running. That's crazy.
And it's like a small, like there's a niche like section of the population. Like, yeah.
Oh, that shit is.
Because I be doing shit, my mom be like, she just looks at me and she hates. I mean, she doesn't hate it, but like I'm like, Mom, it was like we're walking there now. You know, I was like doing crazy shit, but like
that's fun.
But like it's like the parallels to like Joseph Campbell, The Hero's Journey. I remember when I was little. I mean, since I started listening to like all these people when I was like probably like 7th grade or something. So now I just think in like motivational quotes. I don't know. It's so like it's so,
you got on early.
I kind of followed them early. So it kind of like it was irreversible. It's irreversible now.
Oh yeah. Oh wow.
So
I can't even think about that perspective. Starting from 7th grade, that is not what I was listening to in 7th, 8th.
Yeah, so
not even close. Not even close. Oh, okay. That makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Now you make so much more sense now.
Because it was like, that's what I meant. Like, I never missed a day. I've always, so like a lot of the things that I've seen is like how you frame things. So like you can be winning or losing or framing things how you like to see it. So it's like, or if I'm winning, or it's like everything I treat as a training situation. So like, not too long ago, we had a situation at the restaurant we worked for. Like, there's smoke everywhere, and it's like in my head, I'm thinking, okay, this is the best training. I always say, have fun in the poop. So like, as how much can we have fun in the shittiest situation? So I'm like, okay, let's get after it. Let's have fun. And we had fun.
That's awesome.
We really got this joke. He was like, the firefighters, and was like, get out the way, I'm making money. And I was like, that was badass.
Wow.
So that's how I see things, and like most of the time. So I would frame it like that.
There's this really, well, I mean, I'm saying really good. It was expressed to me that it was really good. I haven't gotten around to it, but it's a book called Endure. I'm forgetting who the person is.
Yeah, I've heard of it too.
But my friend Mikey, who's training to break like the world record in rowing right now, he has read that book, so he's tapping into. So I just wanted to bring that up in as a last point to you asking. I wonder what's going on through his mind when you're, at that stage of just your body, you feeling like your body's burning out. Is they go through exactly, to the best of scientific ability today, what exactly endurance is and how much of it is mental, versus the physical aspect of it. So yeah, I do think that there is this mental capacity that if you have worked rigorously, physically and mentally, you'll know that there are new capacities you can unlock, right? So, I can only imagine the capacity in which someone like him, like a David Goggins, has unlocked to continue to just move your body when you just feel like you shouldn't be able to.
Yeah. And I say I don't know, but I know exactly because I know exactly what goes on. Because like the way I characterize it is like a lot of the time when you get to that point, you lose perspective of things. So it's like you get there and you're you're not in the moment. You're just thinking like about how much you are in the moment, but like how do I explain it? So it's like, let me think about it for a second. So when I'm like, if you're in that situation, only thinking about is how much it hurts and how much you like, but it's like, as soon as you can like answer those questions, like that's like the split second decision, like, oh, why we're doing this. And like, that's where it happens. But like for me, like I know for a fact, like I know I get to that state and I've done it so many times. That's like, oh, we've done this before. We can just keep moving. And like the first time I really did something that I like didn't know I could do, it was like during COVID, I like ride my bike. I was like, I'm gonna go ride my bike 100 miles, see what happens. And like thinking back, it was so stupid. Like I took like one Powerade and some Sour Patch Kids with me, but like it wasn't hard at all. So it's like it was like a 6-hour ride, but like I was like doing so. It's like, okay, there's a lot more on the table than you think that's there.
Yeah. So, yeah, people do some pretty wild stuff. Like I've seen, like I've gone on. I like to hike.
Yeah.
So I've gone on some hikes, and you just see some of these dudes out there, some in the military, with their rucksacks, and
they're moving.
They usually got a German Shepherd with them that also has like a weight vest on, and they're just running through this thing. You're just like, yo, they just ran up a rock scramble.
Yeah,
like, that was not like, this is old rag. That's a big rock. You know what I mean? But people, you see people mountain biking, like rail mountain biking. People get
trail, like it's real shit.
Yeah, bro.
I'm like, man,
bro, that's crazy. Like you're just going over rocks and twigs and mud and dirt and trees and they just, like, if you see someone really do that, they're so good at what it is they're doing, like having to try to maneuver and navigate over all that stuff. And then there's certain places where they can't. So then they just get off the bike, put their bike on their back and just start like moving over water or streams and stuff like that. Like this, I've definitely seen that. And I've also felt this sensation of it's sort of like, to be honest, it's very similar, if not the same thing, to the reading of the book.
Yeah.
And reading something off of a page and realizing, oh, I can gain, like the gaining of perspective feels like your world is enlarging. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's enlarging. And I feel like it's roughly the same thing. Like when you go through something rigorously physical and you get out through the other side, you're like, oh, like one, I can do this. Like this is a real thing that I think I want to try judo.
The martial art?
Yeah. I think I want to try judo. I know it's not striking, but that's kind of the reason why. I'm into the physical flow of using momentum against something else, against like an opposing force.
Yeah, trying to rip your head off.
Yeah, exactly. And you're just using minimal movements to just kind of move their body around, and push them out of the way and throw them and stuff like that. Have you done any mixed martial arts or any?
Oh, when my first sport, I mean, I'm not gonna count soccer because I was just out there playing in the field. Like there was no goalies and no one would score the entire time. Like I was like,
You're just running around. Yeah,
I was just running around. But the first sport, I wanted to be a ninja at the time, so I got into.
I went through a ninja stage too,
and then I did it all the way up to around like 7th grade when I started playing football. So I made it to be a 2nd degree black belt. I don't remember anything now, but it was like I was thinking about like the discipline that started. Like my discipline base, and I was like, oh, I remember thinking back to it, I was like, that was a very disciplined thing. Like everything was about like there's a huge attention to detail in everything we do. Like we're standing straight, we're doing our forms correctly, even like we get to look cool, but like it's like not.
Yeah, I was wondering about the foundation. That's what I was just trying to continue to investigate this because I wanted to figure out exactly like where all this comes from. Like, were your parents heavily about all these same things that you're?
My parents are amazing. They're both. I mean, when I say killers, I mean like they're like they're good at what they do.
Yeah,
they're like I'm a little different from both of them. I'm a good mix of both of them. My dad's more the quiet, but he's a badass. Like he works like 3 jobs not because he has to, because he wants to. You know what I mean? He's kind of that dude. And my mom's smart as hell, dude. All that. So
yeah.
But one thing they did is they always let me do not what I wanted to do, but like. They always let me make my own mistakes. So like they raised me, but then at some point they were like, okay, you like, I asked them a question earlier and they were like, oh, you've already proved, you can make decisions. And I'm like, oh, thanks for the advice. You know what I mean? So it's like, they'll tell me, they haven't told me what to do in a long time. Cause I had my head on straight from like when I was little, but like they made sure I didn't die, but they were like, I'm like, all right, mom, like pick me up at Reagan International Airport. I'll see you in 6 hours. Like, you know what I mean? Shit like that. And they're like, okay. Be safe, you know what I mean? It's like I never had a curfew, and then it's like when I remember getting a bad grade, they're like, "Oh, you can get bad grades if you want to be like you're a loser. You're a maze now. Like if you want to get bad grades, that's up to you. But if you want to be extraordinary, it's like I was like, oh, okay, let me actually do this now." So they did a good job. But I'm now a little bit more unhinged than they are. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like I'll say something, they're like, huh? Because I was talking to my book club, I was like, okay, so they're talking about waking up, and I was like, okay, it's like what happens when you hear the alarm clock? And I was like, I hear the alarm clock and I'm already standing. Because I came to the conclusion, I was like, I can't be staying in bed anymore. So like I made a point to like whenever the alarm clock goes off, I stand up immediately and go take my walk. No matter what, don't care if it's sunshine, whatever.
Yeah.
Partly based off the Huber Man goes, I kind of look at the sun, not like staring at it, but like looking at it. So it's like, I was like looking at it, but like, getting moving. Cause I was, like at 3 a.m. when you want to change your life, that's what I always like. If I can get that from the beginning, cause like you make all these plans at 3 a.m. You want to do a bunch of push-ups, wake up, and you're like, I don't want to do this shit anymore. And then you wake up. So like the player tip I always say is like you wake up, get some motivational content or anything that'll get you going. Start with that and then keep on moving. So
what's the motivational content you're starting with?
No, like anything. So it's like it can be anything from music to podcasts I'm listening to. I have like a long playlist of like videos that I've had since that time I started. Like it's like now I can like recite them in my head. So
that's why. So you're just, I mean,
like I can like listen, I'll listen to the videos.
You're just motivation, like in a person, like.
I try to be, but like it's like when people say it, it's like the whole story. Like, oh, you're so disciplined, but like I know for a fact that time. When I was sitting there bullshitting on TikTok. Because like about like last year, I was like, okay, I'm an athlete. I can't use that as an excuse to just get okay grades. Like, I mean, of course, I always got A's and B's. But like, I was like, okay, I want to be an athlete. I want to work part-time job and part-time job and get straight A's.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, so let's see how we're going to make this happen. And then like you start breaking it down. Like, okay. It's not too bad, and then just keep going. And I was like, oh.
That takes a very unique restraint that your parents had to, I mean, also, and trust in you, because, it's both of those things.
Yeah.
To not constantly give their opinion or their analysis or, their preferred route for any decision. Like, that takes quite a bit of reserve.
Yeah, because like they want you to be like this, and I was like, "Oh, I want to play football. I want to do something dangerous." And my mom was like, "What? No!" But then it's like you go out there and like, okay, there's like I always say it's like sports, like probably like the most like influential part of my life. It's like if you have your eyes open, you pretty much you'll learn the lessons that you will learn in life, but like the hard way. So it's like as athletes, like we know what it is to work hard every day, come back and do the same shit over and like you feel like shit. Like people always like, "Oh, what if I don't feel good?" And I was like, That doesn't matter. It's like,
yeah.
Because like I remember like, especially in like on our off season days when it's like 100 degrees outside, you're over there running up a hill in the 100 degrees, people having heat strokes, and you're like, what are we doing? Like, you know, you look around, it's like, it's supposed to be fun. And then you got to come and do the same shit over again. Like, and then like put 400 pounds on your back and do the same shit. And everyone's like, But then I added in, it's so stupid, but like I added in the work. And it was like, go work back to back, like basically 12-hour shifts and then do this. And I was like, and the craziest thing is like I was faster at that time. I don't know, it was all the adrenaline or whatever. I was faster at that time than I am now. Like in this, because like I haven't like hit, like I opened up at a faster time than I did that I'm running now, and I'm not doing half the things I was. So I'm like, damn, maybe I need to go back.
Damn, yeah. But the thing is, also, is there only but so like, do you get 8 hours of sleep?
Yeah.
Yeah,
well, that took a lot of sacrifices. I was like, okay, I need to be accountable for everything if I'm going to make this thing work. Because I know for a fact if I'm half-assing my nutrition or sleep, I'm going to get sick. So like I would go, and I have to get my reading done. And I have to get, you know what I mean? So I'm thinking like, so how am I going to make this happen? So it's like, okay, missing one day. Like I don't missing one day of sleep, 8 hours. Okay, shouldn't be a problem. But like I can't let that compound. So it's like I remember like I would come. Really, like the hard is like Friday, so we come in. I'll make sure I get a good night's sleep because I know I'm gonna have that practice in the morning. Then I would make sure I would have my Pedialytes on me, get my nutrition right, go get Chipotle, take a 30-minute power nap, go to work. So then like, and then I would make sure like I know for a fact, you know, when you work and you just don't drink anything, like get a dehydration headache by 5 if I don't do anything. So I'd just be accountable for the process the entire day, making sure I get my protein in throughout in those intervals just to make sure I'm feeling fine. Yeah. But like I think the reason I felt so much better at that time is because like I would go work back 12-hour shift back to back and then go to practice on Monday. I was like, why do I feel so good? But like when I would get home, I might have to read, but like those like I might have to read or do something or do some homework, but I would get there and I would go have the best sleeps of my like that 8 hours is a real 8 hours. I was hitting the hay and I was gone. Sure. And then I would wake up, go do the same shit over again. Yeah. And but come back and I'm like, oh, okay, we're feeling pretty good. And then like halfway through, I was like, okay, we can do this.
Yeah, sleep is probably pretty good for you, huh? Like you don't really struggle with it. When
No, not really. But like, I don't really need that much sleep in the first place that I found. So it's like, if I can just like, this is the discipline, the small discipline, just putting your phone away. Like I bought a, what's it called? You know, the sleep mask?
Yeah. So
like, it just put it on and you can't look at your phone. Like that's the biggest thing. So you can listen to it. Like I just listen to video, like a YouTube video, like a Vsauce. You remember Vsauce? I like his videos when I go to sleep. So then I just listen to a video when I go to sleep and it's like, okay.
Yeah. Cause it's the whole blue light thing. It's
so it's like you start thinking about that. Like you can turn like the, what's it called? The tone of it up. So it's like I have mine on alarm, or not alarm, but a timer. So at 7, it's starting to get warmer. So like controlling your light exposure is pretty good. But if you're tired enough, you're just gonna fall asleep. To me, like the problem is like if I like on Sundays, it's hard for me to fall asleep. It's like our off day pretty much because I don't do anything. Yeah. So like I'm sitting there, I'm like, okay.
Is it difficult for you to do that?
Yeah.
To like relax?
Not relax. Okay, I love when I'm
like. When was your last vacation or time off? Would you say
this is like I was like you sacrifice like your social life just to, like I'd be like I get that like bug where like okay we should be doing something a lot.
Yeah.
Like right now it's like okay I'm at least like doing something. Like I don't like to just like I don't understand when people are like oh we're gonna just go chill like and hang out. Like I'm like what do you mean we're gonna go chill? Like, okay, if we go eat, that's something different. Like, we're going to enjoy the time. Yeah. And like, that was like one of like, we call it development plan that I made for the book club. And it's like how we can enjoy our leisure time more. Cause it's like, we're trying to be rounded people, not trying to be, I mean, of course, so be unbalanced.
It's kind of like a, oh damn, what was I was going to say, what's the kind of exercise you're doing where it's, it's like moving rest or what do you call it?
Zone.
It's sort of like, maybe it's called like a resting movement or something like that. But it's pretty much just where, you know, you're exercising in between sets. You want to like just stay moving or just doing something light just to kind of continue to move, keep your heart rate up and stay
like
in the zone.
Science is like staying warm.
Yeah, exactly. Pretty much something like that. And kind of just staying in the zone of whatever it is you're doing. But yeah, it seems kind of like that. So you want to have leisure time, but even in that leisure time, just try to do something like latently productive inside.
We try, or it's like I would say we pay for our free time. I mean, but like if you know, like you have to do some shit to like feel like you deserve the free time. I don't know how to explain.
Okay.
Or not deserve it, but like Yeah.
Well, that's kind of what you were saying, like going and sitting on the couch, for 20 minutes.
There,
and you're like, all right, like I can chill. I can feel good about resting now. Yeah. Yeah. I feel like you're probably at a pretty high threshold for that. So you probably have to do quite a bit before you feel good, just like.
Yeah, because I was thinking about it, especially like on the, like, people like, what's it called? We were talking about people going crazy at work. And I was like, oh, why are these people have such low stress tolerances? But then I was thinking about it, I was like, the entirety of my life, I've been playing sports. So like, I know for a fact every weekend, my stomach's going to be turned up. I have to feel like I got to poop. You know what I mean? You'd be nervous as hell. It's like, I guess you do. It never gets easier, but you do get used to it. And you know for a fact, it's like you make bad decisions when you start turning off. So it's like, you learn some things. I remember like, I'll be at service bar, just like on a busy night, just, okay, go back to our breath, be in the moment, relax a little bit. Cause like, we don't have to always like be, cause that's the one thing is if I get like, I would say if I get clacked off or like my adrenaline starts kicking, I'm not going to sleep. That's why I hate playing video. Like I was a huge gamer and like we would always play to win. I'm like, I was talking to people and they're like, so why aren't you watching videos on Siege and like trying to get better? Like when I treat it like a sport. Like when I'm going to warm up and playing.
Yeah.
It's like, cause we played at a high level. Like I hit champ on Siege and I was like, that's when I stopped playing. I was like, I hit the highest rank. I was like, okay. I can leave now knowing that I made it to that level.
I got the title.
Yeah, because I only like to play competitive video games.
Yeah, so, that is so funny.
And most of my teammates only play competitive video games. It's like sports. And it's like, those are my best friends. Like, I'm just like, if you're one of my best friends, it's because we play video games together.
Yeah, that's so funny.
It's just like, yeah, we went through combat together. We played. It was like, those are my boys.
You went through like a journey.
Yeah.
A whole like story arc. Mark said this. He was like, I think we were hanging out with Emily, but either way, we were talking about heterosexual guys hanging out and like what that is. And he said, and I definitely, I'd second this, that guys usually need a thing to do. Like, we're going to watch the game, or we're going to play the game, or we're going to look at something else is going to be the main attraction. It's not going to be just us two looking at each other. Like, that's not going to be the main thing.
Like, hi.
So I'm thinking like when you're talking about, you're like, okay, we're going to go chill. Like, what are you really trying to do here?
Yeah, like go sit on the couch. Like,
talk
about our feelings. Like, like when you're working hard, you don't got time to worry about your feelings.
So this is what's interesting because I heard, so especially with the Marcus Aurelius and I think also the David Goggins book, there's some element of having to speak about, like Sammer was, your emotions or something dark that you're trying to overcome or something like that. So that essentially could be the topic of discussion for two guys to sit down, which is what's happening right now in some way, right? So this is like some weird glitch in the matrix that like a podcast is.
Yeah.
Because it does allow a space for, anyone, but definitely since it's the minority, heterosexual guys to sit down and have a discussion,
genuine conversation
in a way that otherwise wouldn't happen. Like it would be in the midst of watching a game or playing a video game or doing something else as the main activity.
Yeah, because we didn't talk about real life. When we saw each other, we didn't talk about real life.
No.
And we had every time we saw each other, it was all smiles, all this. It was always fun.
It was just
we would get to work, we would talk about random stuff, but we would have fun doing it. But we never talked about it's I didn't know what high school, what your life or anything is.
Nothing.
I didn't know that. I don't know.
I didn't know you shoot.
Yeah.
I didn't know you. Where did that come from?
My dad's side's pretty country.
Oh, okay.
And I like it as a discipline because shooting is pretty hard. So it's like people think you can just go out there and shoot, but it's like you have to control your.
I'm certain.
Yeah. It's like because you can't surprise your nervous system in a sense. So it's like people always flinch before the boom pretty much. So they're moving around all this stuff. So it's it's a discipline that I really like to do because it's super hard.
Yeah.
And people in the community respect it if you are an actual marksman in a sense. So
yeah,
and I grew up in that military side, so of course I'm gonna be a little we played soldier when I was little.
Oh yeah,
so it was
that makes sense. That makes sense. I hear the same thing about archery. I've done some archery, so I feel
I like archery too.
Yeah, that's fun. I get it because essentially you're just sitting. It's a movement. It's one movement, but then there's a world of difference between the best marksman and the worst. But you're essentially doing the same thing. It's not like basketball. You're running around with a team or football. It's not like that. It's you. It's the bow. It's the arrow in the target.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's it. But then, to like hone the type of, like you're saying, breath work, the type of awareness and attention that it takes to just like let everything be one smooth movement.
Yeah, and it's
crazy
what you're focusing on. And it's like, and how can you do it to a point where it's just muscle memory, where you're doing the right things all the time? And of course, you always need to be honing it to make sure that muscle memory never gets off course. But like, it's respectable when you see someone a top 0.1%. Because even when you get to the top 1% of a community, you realize how much better the top 0.1. Like I remember hitting champ, and then we would play kids, and you were like, yo, these kids, like the top 0.01 are like crazy. They're like better than like I am to like a novice player.
Right.
Because it's like a huge thing. And I noticed that when I went to college and started running track, it was like, oh, these kids are like,
bro, that's life.
Yeah. So it's like,
I forget what, I think it's, I forget the name of it, but it's this learning curve where like when most people start something first, most people think that they know more about it than they actually do.
Yeah.
When you very, very first start something, you're like, oh, I think I have a decent understanding of like what this thing is. Then you start to do the thing for a little while and you realize you had no fucking idea what you were talking about. And you're like, oh, there's a lot going on here. Then you get better and better and better. And you hit this point where you've been doing it for a while. You've been maybe doing it at a high level. You've been networking, talking to people. You have amassed a much more information than you had when you were a novice. So now you think that you're really good.
yeah.
Then you continue to do it for a little bit longer and you hit this curve where you realize again that you're still like a novice to some people that have been doing it for 20 years or whatever.
Yeah.
You're like, wow, I still have so much to learn. So many details, so many nuances.
Yeah. At that point, it's like all the little things really matter.
Yeah.
Because when you first start stuff, we call them the newbie games. When you first start lifting, you're going to put on a whole bunch. But now, especially like at the point now, we're like worrying about 0.02, trying to run faster in 0.02. And it's like the hardest thing in the world. It's like the smallest thing. Like, is your shin angle at 45 degrees or 35 degrees? It's like the littlest thing. And then, but it was like, yo.
Yeah. That's when you start talking differently.
Yeah, because it's like you have to be accountable for everything that you do in that. And it's not necessarily, it's like, I always thought about it as like in high school, sports started to stop to become season sports. It's a year-long commitment. Like in football, this season was from like August, or like we start playing games in late August, early September to maybe November. But then people would take the rest of the year off. But then like when you get to high school, it's like, oh, like winter training starts in November, and then you might take like a few weeks off.
Yeah.
But then you start, like I remember played football, but like I have to go to track practice and you had to go to football green day because that's how we think. Like that's how it was. And it becomes a year-long commitment rather than just, oh, I'm just going to go play football and then that's it.
Well, so I mean, that's how some people just like excel in things.
Yeah.
There's this book by Malcolm Gladwell, I think, because I've read 2 of his books. I think it was Outliers. No, it was definitely Outliers. And I think it was when he was talking about Korea or China. He was talking about a lot of, just Asian countries in general, but I think Chinese in particular, because their language is made to, like, when they say numbers, their arithmetic is built into the language. So when they say like 33, it's 3 10s and 3 1s, pretty much is what they're saying. So once you build the arithmetic in, it makes arithmetic much easier.
Yeah.
Because the way you're even saying the number is the arithmetic itself. Now that's one reason as to why they're far better at math than we are. So they can say things or whole statements much quicker than we can. But on top of that, when it comes to the education system, there are places where people are in school much longer than we are, where we have 3 months off in the summertime or 2.5 months, whatever that is in our public schools. They'll have like a couple of weeks. They'll have a month, something like that. And they're still working in that time. Like like you said, it's a year-long commitment being a student in this country.
Of
you
course.
know what I mean? So that's how other countries feel. Like, we're going to work all year.
And I'm sure you have foreign friends. And like I was in Barnes & Noble buying one of the new books, and I saw like a 4-year-old like Asian kid on the floor reading a textbook, and I was like, that's why. But like there's a burden of performance in those. Like, you have foreign friends. Go look at their families. especially on the Asian side, like if you go and look, like you're expected to get all A's. That's the bottom line, and they do it because that's what it's expected.
Yeah, it's just like, this is what it is.
That's what, like, I think my parents, like, when I, like, they expected, like, that was the expectation. Like, I remember I got a B and I was like, oh, I remember I in high school or whatever, I was like, oh, I got this grade, or like, that's what you're supposed to get.
Yeah.
And then I said it again this time. They're like, congratulations on what, Dean's List or whatever. And I was like, no, that's what we're supposed to do. Yeah, so it's like, and my mom's last name was B. She's like, okay. And her dad was like, oh, you can't get anything less than a B. I was like, oh, I can get anything less than the M. I'm good. I can get any grade. I can get A through F, and no problem.
So, no, that's what we're supposed to do.
But they, like, you know what I mean? They intend to win. Like, that's the thing. And it's like, most of the time, people are like, oh, if you get C's and all this, that's okay. It's like, C's get degrees and like all this stuff. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, it may be true, but like,
yeah.
Because that's the thing. I treat school, it's like, I don't really think it's like that influential for me, but like, it's learning to do things that I don't want to do. Like, the hardest thing I do every day is do my homework. That's like the hardest thing. Like, I don't mind running until like you puke, but like doing homework, I'm like,
is it just the idea of like sitting your stuff down, pulling out everything that you need? Like,
it's not necessarily, because when I get in that zone, I'm like, okay, we're having fun, because that's what I attach my identity to, is working. So I was like, oh, we're doing good. Like, I'm getting after it. Like, that's like, but I just think sometimes I'm like, I don't see how this is going to benefit me. The material is going to benefit me. Because it's like, you go through, especially like, I'm in like a lot of like managerial classes now, or leadership style. They like talk about all these leadership theories. And it's like, oh, it's like, I kind of like, if you've been in that space, you understand that like, you can't really like put just one theory to like solve all situations. So it's like, when I was looking at it, I was like, oh, I don't know the feasibility of this, like a theory X or theory Y manager. And I was like, I feel like this needs to be good, like mix of both, because it's like, we live in a real world where there's different people who require different things, and you can't just pick one thing to be a good leader in a sense. So that's what I always think.
Yeah, Mark was I think he read half of the Can't Hurt Me.
Yeah.
And he was saying that there's a lot of the Get Hard stuff that, you know, he wishes wasn't, I guess, as hard. He's a compassionate type of guy, and wants there to be some softness in the world, and all that sort of stuff. And I was like, well, I think that you can definitely have both. Like, it all exists in the same world. So I think that, as you were pointing out, there's no one philosophy to handle all problems. Like, no one solution is going to be a solution every single time in every scenario. You know, so, but it's good to be able to have these varying philosophies and perspectives, to be able to use them whenever need be.
Yeah, I characterize like having a toolbox. You can use the right tool for the job. It's like, we were talking about the emotions in Marcus Aurelius' Meditations, and we were like, we came to the conclusion, I read Jordan Peterson's book too, 12 Rules of Life, and it was like the antidote to chaos.
Yeah.
And I think most of that book was the antidote to chaos, in a sense. So it was like, how are we dealing with bad times rather than good? Because it's like, that's how I looked at the book, because that's the time you would use it, you know what I mean? So it's like being okay with the outcome. So like, that's what I kind of learned when I came into college. It's like for the first year, I kind of felt entitled to good results because I worked harder than everyone else. I was taking the time in the summer learning nutrition. Like I always say, it's like, it's like what you get in is what you get out, but it might not be in the avenue that you want it to be in. So like, I put all this time in to be the best sprinter I could, but it didn't happen necessarily in the way I thought it was going to happen. I came out a different person that has a discipline to do all these things. I'm bigger, stronger, faster, smarter, worked in a team, like, you know what I mean? Stuff like that. So like, I got it out, what I put in, but just not in the avenue. I mean, it still sucks. It's like, oh, I work so hard and it feels like a waste, but I'm like, oh, yeah. But like, I'm actually happy in most of the time. So I look at some of my teammates and like, they're dead ass champions at what they do, the best at what they do, but they're still broken people. So I don't know. It's like that quote. It's like the losers today are like tomorrow's winners or whatever. So it's like, I know like for a fact, it's like, okay, I've learned a lot of this, like to like last 4 years is like how to lose. That's so like learning to fail and learning how to get back up every day. Cause it's like, it's not a pretty story either to us. It's like, and it's, you don't talk about it too. Like we're talking about it now, but of course you just show the stoic on the outside, but like trying to like going back every week, you like learning to do stuff when you have no hope is the hard part. So it's like logically, like you have no reason to believe in yourself. And that's when you kind of have to be a little delusional. So it's like, I usually give myself one day to feel bad for myself. And then every Monday I come back and I'm like, okay, we're going to go back after it. That's how I like frame it in my head. So it's like, in like this week we have to do it again. You know, for this week, every week I'm coming back with a new plan to get back after it, and like try not to be like, because I was like, I'm not. I was like, damn, I'm being soft right now. Like if I'm sitting there feeling bad for myself because I understand what it feels like, but then you're trying to like, you can't use the logical approach with it. You have to be a little delusional, like that. What if I can actually make this happen? So, and then it takes a lot of the stress off because it's like that's what it feels like. If I work as hard as I can, like most of the time people feel a lot of anxiety and stress because they didn't do the work. So I can step on the track and realize that, oh, I've done all the work. It's like, if it's meant to be, it's not. Like that's where you can be stoic in that. Like I've done all like the preparation, and all I gotta do is just go perform. If it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. If it does, it does. So it's like I'm kind of already like, that's why I associated my self-worth with the process rather than the outcome. And that's the thing. Most of the people, it's like, I mean, of course, it's always gonna have like a pull on you, like how your outcome is. But at some point, you're like, I'm like, you can always do little things better. But like at some point, you're there. You're like, okay, I did. If you can think back and like with the information I had at the time, could I have done anything better? It's like, okay, yeah, I did all I could. I mean, of course, you didn't do all you could, but like I did a thing. So we just learn from that and move on. Yeah. So it's like,
asking people like if they would do something different in the past is an interesting question.
No, because it's like,
you're like, well, am I who I am now with the information of the experience that I went through if I go back in time? Because of course I would do it like differently because I would be more knowledgeable of the situation, or maybe I wouldn't. But if I go back in time and I'm the exact same person I was when I made that decision with the information I had at the time and the capabilities, then I'm going to make the same exact decision that I made. Like, what do you mean?
Because there's a reason. You probably thought about the decision. If you didn't think at all, maybe. But like, if you truly thought about it and you're like,
so like, no, like I put some thought into that. Like, I'm gonna make
you were trying your best, and not you're trying your. I mean, you can always do better, but like you were like, you made a good decision at the time, who you thought was going to be a good decision. Yeah, you can't really blame yourself for that.
Yeah, no, there's too much. Like life is, there are too many factors outside of just, and that's a great thing to realize is that in this culture we have created this essence of get after it, and if you're not where you think you ought to be, is because you didn't work to get there. There is something in that clearly we have seen hard work amount to XYZ. Right? Yeah. And then there's just life factors, just other things that are just muddled. You know, maybe you're growing up in a place, and there's also outliers where people make it out of these places, but maybe you're just growing up in a place where there's just malaria around constantly, and you have to mine coal somewhere, mine some cobalt or whatever it is that's in our smartphones. You know what I mean? Like that's just what you and your family are doing. So for you, maybe getting after it isn't gonna, make you a millionaire by age 35. You know? But for a lot of people though, that we know, that we've grown up around, that are in like pretty decent spaces in life to make these pivots, like it's definitely possible.
Oh no, for sure.
It's 1,000%.
Especially like you talk a lot of shit about the US, but it's like you can really do a lot of things. Like, we have a lot of second generation friends. Like look at their parents. They came over here with nothing and really made it.
Got after.
Yeah, and it's like, it seems like
you can definitely make some stuff happen. Is there like an ultimate goal? Like I know that, so there's millionaire by 35.
I just say that I don't really. I want to make enough money to the point where I can go to any restaurant, not look at the check. I'm not thinking I just think the quality of my goal setting is what determines like the happiness of my life, because I've always set big goals, and it's like, say I'm gonna get all A's. It's like the fun part, like you get to the end, I'm like, okay, I got it. Now I'm like, okay, that's not that fun. But the fun part was, week by week, I'm got A on this assignment. I'm one step closer. And then you get to that point, like, I need to get a 92 on this. So I'm working my ass off to get that good grade. And you're like, okay, we're getting closer. So like, that was the fun part. Yeah. It was the journey that I always liked. So I'm just trying to set good goals so that it actually push me. That's what I was like.
Yeah, so it's just a constant. Yeah, it's just going to be constant. It'll always look different. The goals will always look different. You'll always be headed to new places. But there's no mountain peak where you're like, once I do this thing, I can cash it all in. I'm done. Like,
because that's when you die. Yeah. It's just like people always talk about retirement at 65. Like a lot of people retire at 65 and die the next year. It's just like, I don't know.
Damn. That's wild.
because you need a purpose to live.
Yeah,
I mean, if you need to figure that out.
Right. Oh man, that's crazy to feel like, yeah, that's tough. That's tough when you're so linked to like this one thing that you do. And like without that thing, now you're like, oh shit. Like if I don't have this anymore, what do I do? I had a friend, his name is Vince. He came on, he's been on here twice, I think. He went through that. I think I think he had a stroke or something. I'm pretty certain it was a stroke. But he like couldn't do, he had to learn how to like walk again, how to like just do mad shit. Now he's a big ass dude, so he's back in the gym now. He's crazy. But at a point just thinking, oh well, I can't do these things I used to do anymore. Like that's what I was. That's all I did. Like so now who am I? You know, it's so crazy that you can be so linked to that idea that you can die naturally without it. That's wild. To retire and then a year later you just like your soul has just been like, we ain't doing it.
Yeah, we're done.
Shut this down. Like we're done.
I always
simulation over.
Yeah, just done. But I was like it was like a blessing that I like my track career didn't go the way I wanted to in the middle, because I had the identity crisis early when most of my teammates, we graduate this year. Like you're done. And same thing in the military. We like in the book group, we have some veterans and like people who get out and it's like they're just lost. And then like that happens a lot in sports too, because like you spend all this time as that person and then now what are you gonna do? So it's like I had that identity crisis like my sophomore year and I was like, okay, we need to start preparing for the next stage of life. So it's like I need to get my finances in order and start training for the things that I want. So like when you say the ultimate goal, I wanted to be able to have a job where I can be great at. Like I want to be a high performer at my job. I want to have an amazing relationship, be an amazing parent and have time for my hobbies. And that was the goal. So it's like, if I know I can work a job, go like run into the ground every day and do great at school, things that 2 of those I don't want to do. And I was like, okay, now it's like, I have the confidence I can go do that in the next time. Yeah. And like the way I think about it now is just like microly or like in the micro stage, I'm thinking about being in the moment, but macro, I'm like I'm going to think strategically. But like, that's how I did it. It was like everything I did, I was all in on what I was doing. So it was like kind of like, I always think I was riding my bike. That's my favorite time to like think. It was like,
that's your like mind cleansing time?
I was just riding my bike.
Or you're like consciously like trying to work through a problem think.
Yeah. And I was just like, pondering.
Okay.
And I was thinking about, it was just like serving tables. Cause like, say you have 4 tables in your section and you're thinking, you're like, you're going to try your best. You're going to do your best. You're not thinking about your other tables to get this table right. So you don't have to worry about it later. And then you come back to it later. So it's like, I'm going to do my best at school. So I'm not thinking about anything else when I'm at school. I'm just at school doing my shit. And then I can go to practice knowing that I don't have to think about that. And then I go to work at the end of it. And I'm like, I'm not worried about the assignments or anything because I know I did my best there.
Yeah.
So it's like, if you take care of each table, like there's just one table, then it's like, okay.
Yeah. It's the self-help world, because I don't know when that boom happened. Yeah, I feel like it hasn't always been like this. But whenever it like really got crazy, I feel like anytime this is just life. Anytime anything blows up, you're going to get your hierarchy. You're going to get people that are really good at it, people that suck at it, people in the middle. You're going to get people that don't even really care for the thing, but they're going to try to now commodify it because they see that it has value. And when it comes to self-help stuff, a lot of people sort of like look at self-help books like, man, get the fuck out of here. Weird, you know what I mean? Like get like, what is it telling you? Probably because they see so many. And there are certain people that will just say very basic ass things.
Yeah, just like the cliche quote.
Yeah, and I feel like, so things get a bad rap for sure. And that always happens. Anytime anything gets popular. And I will say that being present, being in the moment has gotten a bad rap. Like it's just kind of said so much that people are just like, oh, be in the moment. Okay, cool. Like, what does that mean really? But this is exactly what it is that you're saying is schematically speaking on the macro. You're like, I know where I'm trying to head. I know.
Yeah, I'm planning. I'm planning ahead. I'm thinking. I'm following that plan.
Right. But, and you know that so now that you've built that blueprint in the macro, that's in your subconscious. and maybe just in your just consciousness, now in the moment, you're making the decisions that map onto that bigger plan, and you're doing that. And so that seems to be probably, I would say, one of the largest, if not the largest, problems for just most people in general, because you're so worried about what the next thing is that you're not giving the attention to the thing that you're doing at the moment. And so by the time you get to the next thing that you're worried about, now you're in that moment thinking about the next thing. So like you're not doing anything to the best of your ability because you're constantly thinking about the next thing, or possibly the thing that you just did prior, which is even worse.
And that's hard. I mean, it's not saying it's always going to be easy, because it's not. Like you're sometimes some shit's going to happen. You just always think of it, but that's when like you actually have to like focus.
Yeah.
And like that's why like in the self-help mode, people always like what you said about like why it's not supposed to be hard, because I think people kind of like made it seem like it was supposed to be easy, but like the reality of it is you're always going to feel like shit, and like you're always going to be doing things you don't want to do. But like you always feel like shit doing, but like you have like the satisfaction that you're not doing. You're actually doing stuff. That's always like I can think about the stuff I did in a happy sense rather than I was happy at the time. Of course, I was forcing myself to be happy at the time. Like I remember like cleaning my section. I was the last one there. Like I was an HL at the time. I was like cleaning my section. I was feeling bad for myself for like complaining in my head. And I was like, oh wait, this is what we do. And then I was like, okay, let's enjoy our time doing this stuff. Like I DoorDash now just because it fits my schedule, and actually it's actually pretty good.
I hear.
But like I'll take orders just because they suck, and it's like, oh, how can we have fun in the poop? That's what I always say. So it's like
you go out the way to make a shitty situation.
It's like a $3 order for like 10 miles. You're like, why did I accept this? It's like like what am I doing? But then I'm like, okay, this is like we're gonna use this time wisely. So it's like
that's funny as hell. $3 order, 10 miles. Fuck it. That's
like,
wild.
Yeah, I gotta get my acceptance rate up. But
that's funny as hell. Yeah, that'll definitely do it.
No, yeah, it does.
It better.
But
that's funny.
It was like, but then I was like, and I guess not focusing on the right things. So like when we were at work, and I always said like I'm not worried about how much money. Like people always ask, how much money did you make? First of all, like like the ego is like, oh, you don't want to know how much I made. But then the second was like, I'm not basing my experience on how much money I made that day, because there's a lot of factors to it. It's like how well I performed, because I was proud when I left, because I went through my entire serving career without making a big oopsie. Like maybe the occasional like, can you delete this bread? I put it 2 times, but like never forgot anyone's order or anything, because I was focused on being the best server I could. And I wasn't like. The reason I got a job in the hospitality industry is I was looking at my toolbox, and my social side was the worst side, because like I was always a head down grinder, but not really like a talker. So like I was like had to really step out of my comfort zone and be able to talk to people. So like I'm at the server, and I was like, yeah. And it was like, this is starting to get hard. So it's like I would just go home and I would write down everything I was gonna say. So it would just be picking from a toolbox. I think I told you this when I was training. So it was like, welcome in. I'm not gonna say that right now, but like, or just so y'all know, like I would have what I was gonna say, so I could just memorize those and have a toolbox, so I can always just. So I mean, of course, I got to the point where you can just start talking, but like at that time, it would just be automatic, have the tools like lined up. So like that's how I thought of it. But like it took a little bit, but then
it took some time.
Started getting, and then it's like when I trained you, I've only been serving for like 3.5 months,
right?
So I was like, I remember exactly what I remembered I didn't know. So it's like. I mean, I was notorious for not teaching like super spec, because I wasn't a super spec server. Of course, if they ask me to do something, I'm going to do it, right? Especially little things like parking on the 4th deck of the parking garage. People are like, why did you do that? And I was like, because they asked me to do it. Because I can.
Because they asked me to do it.
Because like, I'm not a yes man, but I'm going to think about things logically. And I understand that at that time, there's a lot of construction. People want to park where they want to park. And I'm thinking, I'm an athlete. I can walk up.
I also have no problem.
He's like, aren't
moving.
You tired? I'm like, no. Why would I be tired? No, first of all, and I don't say I'm tired. I never say I'm tired, because I might be fatigued, but I'm never tired, because like it's like I'm very careful how I talk to myself. I'm always like that. So when we would get there, I was like, oh, I can. But like if I see something, especially like in like the way we did things that didn't make sense to me, or like I found to be a better way, I'm gonna tell you what they want, and I'm gonna tell you how I do it. Of course, if it's not too far off what they want. So like little things, especially like double seating. Remember, like did we take a double seat with you? I think we did.
Yeah, probably.
So they don't want you to do that,
Yep.
but I was training you for the reality of what it's going to be, be a restaurant situation. We're going to get shit on, and the reality of it is we're going to have to take double seats, because as soon as you become a burden to other people, I mean, of course, we want everything to be like team service. They always preach that, but like, you need to be the best server so we can work together as a team, not
so you're
like
not holding other people back. Yeah.
Because like when me, you, Brian would be together, like we would ask each other to do stuff, but we had a clean, like everything was clean because we were all competent. So it's like, maybe take a step back from the team service aspect and learn how to be the best server you can before you start asking everyone to do everything for you.
Try to be the best individual so you can be the best part of the collective.
Yeah, so it's like, and it was like, I was like, okay, that's easy.
I mean, that's life.
Yeah,
that's life. Try to be the best individual so you can be, even though you're just this fraction of the entire community that is humans, be the best part. Like, be the best part of that fraction that you can be. That's a good philosophy to stand by. And I'll go back for a second, because I don't know if you guys are just going to continuously pick up different like philosophy books or not.
Well, yeah. So right now we're last chapter, so we're reading Extreme Ownership. I've already read it, but most of the people in the group wanted to read it.
Okay.
So
I don't know if you've heard of Alan Watts and Taoism.
Yeah.
And all that. So there is this understanding that there's other perspective that you're this one little fraction, this one speck in this flowing stream that is life happening, in that you kind of want to judo yourself through that situation, right? Like, use momentum when it needs to be, use strength when it needs to be, flow when it needs to happen. And that it's all really just a flow. And you're not even so bent up on if you're happy or not in a situation when you're flowing with that situation. Like, when you're doing something and you're just constantly moving and there are no other thoughts going on, you're not even taking into account if you're happy in that situation. You're so immersed in doing the thing that, like, that's the only thing you're experiencing at the moment. Mm-hmm. And that could be track, that could be, running, it could be reading a book, it could be listening to a podcast, it could be serving at work, it could be anything. And you just get so immersed and you get in that flow. You're not thinking, am I happy? Am I unhappy doing this thing? So it's like a key. It's a way out of having to constantly think about what state you're in. Because the state that you're in is just in the flow of whatever it is that you're doing. You're not even concerned with those other things. So, like, I know happiness, like, people trying to constantly find like this, just this ever flowing happiness in life. Like, some people are just trying
like,
to
you're
find
always going to
like,
be happy. Like,
you know what I mean? Like, I feel like that's a kind of like a archaic desire. I don't think.
It's not realistic.
Yeah, like, most people these days are like, oh, I just want to be happy. People use different words. People say like peaceful, or I want to, have a meaningful life. Like, you say other things, but not just like happy.
Yeah.
Like, nah, I don't.
But I can say I'm at peace most of the time.
Yeah.
I always say they thought it was funny because I said, the 3 emotions. I'm either locked in, chilling, or what's it called? Or peaceful. You know what I mean? No, I would say pissed off, locked in, or peaceful. Like, those are 3.
Funny.
That's only 3. Yeah.
Yeah, that's hilarious. The 3 emotions.
The 3 emotions. I mean, of course, it was a joke, but like, there's some more. But it was kind of funny.
Something that also happens with self-help stuff is, for some people that want to push an agenda, like, they want to push an idea through. Like, I just watched this documentary, I think it was on like Amazon Prime, and it was about this guy that wanted to find happiness or peace in his life. So he followed someone, like this Buddhist monk that's been hooked up to some machine and has had some brain waves measure that says that he's like the happiest man on the planet. And then there's like this sage, this neurologist, but he had this long journey and took this guy with him and his wife, and he shot this documentary trying to find what were the real components to living a meaningful, happy life. And the content is good, and this is the whole self-help book thing I'm getting on, but sometimes they'll make it a little corny, and they'll try to push the agenda a little too much. So now by the end of this journey, the documentarian is now trying to act as though he's not necessarily enlightened, but that he's a much calmer person and that so much has happened for him. But it seemed very manufactured. It seemed like all the content, all the people he spoke to, they were all genuine, but he was trying to push that this stuff really works. And now I'm better by the end of this movie that you guys watched and it's all good. And I feel like with self-help stuff, we understand that as consumers, we look for results. We want results and we want them fast.
Of course, yeah.
So you don't want to hear that it's a long journey. You don't want to hear that you may have to be meditating or doing something meditative or mind cleansing for the next 5 to 10 years for you to really feel a huge difference, or even for a year, even for months. Some people are like, can I do this week? So when they start doing something, they have really high expectations because they're like, I want to see something. You see people do that with like weight loss. Like if they start getting in the gym or they try a new diet for a week or 2 weeks and they're like, it's not working. Like what it's not, it's like, oh man.
You have a long journey.
You got a long way. It's not like that. So I feel like self-help books get a lot of bad rap for that too, because they do. Sometimes people do try to make things easier than they seem because they want people, not even for nefarious reasons, just because they want people to start trying things, and they know people won't try unless they think that there's going to be some real noticeable outcome or conclusion in some decent time.
Yeah, because then you're just acting on faith.
Yeah.
Because it's like, what's it called? This will bring me to the question I actually had for you. Well, dang, I forgot what I was gonna say. But the question I have for you is like on the concept of like, because you're like one of like the most like emotionally intelligent people I've ever met. Like I would like just sit there and watch you at work. People ask you a question, you tell them something, and it like actually like you could physically see that it moved them, right? So, what is your opinion on saving people? Because I always felt like I got out the business of saving people a long time ago because most people don't like want it as bad as me. So like people would ask me like, how am I do this? How do I do that? And then they might do it for a week or a month or something, but then they're like, oh, I can't do it anymore. Or like, they'll tell me like all this bullshit. And I'm like, oh, at some point you just got to sack it up, and just man up and do it. But like, I don't know. It's like, you like expect people to approach things the way you would in a sense. But like, how do you deal with people like, what's it called? Saving people in a sense. So it's like, you like, on the outside, we know a lot of these people, you look at them, you're like, they're just standing in the fire. We're just move a little bit this way. And like, you can't move them at all. Like, it's because they just don't understand. But like, everyone can look at their situation and tell exactly what's wrong, but they can't see it in a sense.
Yeah.
Because like, we all know those people. Like you might love your friends, but they're just on a bad path and they won't listen to you, or like they won't, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I've equated this to being, I've been interested in eternal beings, whether they're vampires or they're like a Dorian Gray, picture of Dorian Gray written by Oscar Wilde. There's something about, there's also another book called The Story of Addie LaRue, or The Life of Addie LaRue. That's a good one. But beings that live for a long amount of time are very, very interesting to me, because you understand where you're at age 5, 10. We've been around them. You can think back to when you were 15. Now you're in your 20s. And there's going to be a point where you look back at age 50, at age 60, at you now like you were a child, and that's going to continue to happen. And if we just continue to live past 100 to 200 to 300, we'd be looking at our 100-year-old selves like, that's a kid.
Yeah.
So there's something about this way of life. Something that always happens for an eternal being as well is you just have to sit by and watch everyone that you care and love die over and over and over. And that's your cross to bear. That's just going to be the reality of the situation. And maybe it's really rough the first time you get a wife and children, and then you realize, wait a minute, I'm going to live forever. Wait a minute, I'm going to watch my kid get as old as me, then get older than me, and then die. Like, how many times am I going to do this? I'm certain it's really tough the first time for a vampire or eternal being of sorts. Maybe even the second time. But at some point, after you're maybe 500 years old, 600 years old, you're probably like, oh, this is life. So I'm not saying that I'm 600 in this body, but I wanted to save people for a long time. And yeah, because I would see things just like that. I'd be like, I feel like I have some answers, not all the answers to everything in the world, but some to the problems that are arising. And
simple problems.
Yeah, you know what I mean? It's like, it's not like I have to be a sage or an omniscient being to understand that if, like you said, if you just move a little bit to the left or a little bit to the right, like if you just, but the more you familiarize yourself with your own mind and how you see those situations where you could have done better or you did something, that you're just like, why did I make that decision? You realize in those moments you were working with what you had in those moments. Like that's what you had. And so if you go back, you're making that decision as we've already spoke on. You're going to make that same decision. So I think you get to a point where you stop trying to save people and you just look at them and realize that they're on this part of their journey. And there's something about old mystics and sages always answering people in stories, small riddles, allegories. There's something in that because I think that very wise people start to understand that you have to live life. Like people have to live life. You can influence, you can guide, but you cannot live someone else's life for them. You cannot make these decisions. And people learn through story. So just offering perspectives through stories that you've experienced or that you've read or heard about, and mostly just asking people questions. Just asking them questions so that they can come to the conclusion seems to be the best way to go through those situations. And it's, that doesn't need to be your job. To try to live those, like you need to do your own thing,
Yes, you got to take care of yourself so you can be the best person for other people.
Yeah.
Like the position I'm at now, it's like, you tell me when you're ready to go. I'll show up at your house for it. You know what I mean? Like for like some of my closest friends, I'll show up at your house at 4 a.m. that day when you tell me you're ready to go.
Yeah.
Because at some point you need to be the one to say that I'm going to change. Because it's like, you can tell people, you give them all the blueprint, everything, but they're still going to quit. And you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah, it's just like, all right, that's not for you right now. Well, I'm just going to keep it moving.
Of course.
And
it's like, yeah, you should, like, if you have a group of high-performing friends, you're going to feel like shit, and that should make you want to move. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you definitely want people around that you admire. For whatever reasons, you want to be able to look at these people and be like, wow, like, they really have this thing about them. Like, maybe I should emulate that a bit more or something like that. But they should all have something. It doesn't mean all of them are the complete figure, but they should have some nobility or some characteristic, some quality that you admire. Yeah. Or else, you just kind of like looking at this person and like,
you're like, what?
Why are we hanging out
That's
again?
like at work. I was like, I only talk to everywhere now. I only talk to people that are positive. Like, I don't really need you to be a high performer. I need you to be a good person to be around. Because I feel, especially at work, the only thing more contagious than a positive attitude is a negative attitude. And we all know the negative Nancy's at work. So I've been on teams like most of my life, and I'm like, you almost have a responsibility to share your energy when you're in a good mood, especially most of the time, not everyone's gonna be in a good mood, but those people who are just so contagious in that setting. So it's like when you get to work, we're laughing around, joking around, doesn't matter what's happening. That's when I was like, okay, you keep doing that. Even when you're not feeling good, you have to understand how much you affect other people too with your negativity. So it's like,
I'm gonna get bathroom break, and then I'm gonna come back in on that point right there. You're just talking about
energy.
Oh, energy. Yeah. So going back to the whole saving thing, people ask for advice, or they like, people like answers. They want something nice and packaged up perfectly for them. Just like, give me an answer for this thing. That's often just not how life goes. And it takes some time, like really kind of go through these different philosophies and find different answers and corresponding answers that kind of give you some semblance of an answer or something like that. But I think that instead of trying to do the saving and give everyone all the proper answers that they need as you see fit, is be that energy around them. Because often, just like children, we learn from just watching someone move. Like you were just saying, it's not that I'm giving someone an answer at work because I'm like, hey, you want to better your life? Listen to me. They ask me some question for whatever reason, probably because I'm walking around and they just want to know what the fuck is going on with this guy. Same they wanted to know with you. It's like when you're quiet, people want to know like what's going on with you.
You're mysterious.
Yeah, like what's going on through your mind, you know? Because most people just like speak, like they just put everything out. But I think if you just, and not even for the sake of this conclusion or this benefit, but if you are in this flow and you're just worried about the things that you're doing, people can watch you as you watch me answer those questions and just see something in the way that someone is existing, just in the way that they move. And you may be able to glean some insight from watching that. And then if you're interested enough, then you can have some follow-up questions because you're curious about how they move like this or what philosophies or experiences made them, like brought them to that situation. But I think the question asking is difficult for people though, for many reasons. But I will just say, I think aside from the trying to save someone, instead of doing that, I think just being yourself and working will give off a certain energy. And it's sort of like the way that they express it is water in Taoism is water erodes. You know, so when people come to talk to you, you can see the difference in like what you're giving off from when you watch someone speak to someone and the energy that they have speaking to that person versus when they come to speak to you and like what happens. Because when we speak to each other in person and we sync up and we're looking at each other, there's just like this energy transference that like starts to happen. So like this is a perfect way of explaining it. For example, Tony, one time I'm going to put her out here for a second. I don't know what slew of things had to happen in order for her to think that this is the only way that she could connect with me. But one day I'm by one of the posies putting in some information on rolling silverware or something. And she's like, so Earl, you had any revelations recently? And I just start laughing because I'm like, that's so funny. Because for whatever reason, I mean, one, great question, and I'd be happy to answer it, by the way. But it's so funny because you would never approach anyone else in here and ask them that question, you know?
It was either me, you, or like, I don't know.
Yeah, you know, so it's just very funny to ask that question, but you can just see the energy that you give off simply because of the energy that people come and engage with you in. Yeah. You know? So I think that just being is probably the best thing that you can do rather than like trying to make someone something that maybe that they don't even really want to be.
Yeah, it's got to define what you actually want.
Yeah.
The biggest thing that I've heard, or like that was like lead by example. Because that's the leadership, like, what's it called? Concept that I subscribed to. And I was like, oh, lead by example. Yeah. You find it everywhere, I guess. Because at the time, I actually became an HR. So I read Extreme Ownership. And I was like, oh, part of being a leader, just being a better person. That was the entirety of the book, pretty much. How effectively can you control your ego, communicate effectively? I saw that so much. And that was a huge problem with just, like I always say normal people. My mom hates it. But like normal people in general is like the way, effective communication is not necessarily like what you're saying, but how you say it. And a lot of the problems we had were people in leadership positions just yelling at people. And it's like, we're now on the football field. You can do that to some people, but you have to really know them. Yeah. And it's like, oh, can you go get some ice? And like, people are like, oh, hell no. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, just transferring it. But like, one of the simple things that I always used is like, especially with notorious not workers. First of all, they need to respect you, right? So you need to be doing what they are supposed to be doing, but at a higher level. So like, that was the biggest thing. Like, to me, like when I became in that position, I was like, okay, I need to step it up, and I always need to be doing the right thing because people are always looking at you. If they catch you slacking off, and be like, oh, this person doesn't really mean what they're saying. So like a simple thing is like, oh, tell me when. First of all, I understand being a server, so it's like you're gonna get shit on, right? And the worst thing that happened when you're getting shit on is someone yelling at you for not doing your side work. You know what I mean? So I'm thinking, it's like most people, I'm like, oh, tell me when you're in a good spot, first of all. And I'm going to tell you you're in a good spot. Let's go do this together, right? Or I'm going to go find you a friend and we're going to go do this together. So it's like Notorious Not Workers. I'm like, yo, tell me when you're in a good spot. Let's go shovel some ice. You know what I mean? And then they would come to me, I'm in a good spot right now. We go shovel some ice half the time. He scoops it in. I put in the thing. We go do it. And it's like, oh, that worked so nice. And then by the time I left, I was like, I didn't even have to tell people to do anything most of the time, or like ask them twice. Like I never asked anybody twice to do anything because they actually wanted to help me. Like we have people you work with where you just want to do things for them, like Hisham, right? Not a loud person. Like people, like when you think about a leader, people always think in the guy who shouts out orders. But like the respect part is like Hisham asks you to do something because he got your back no matter what. That man has saved my life so many times. So it's like if he asks you to do something, you're like, okay, roger that. I'm going to do that, right? And it's like,
someone saying no to Hisham is crazy.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like, and I was like, before I was like, yeah, we got people. It was like Notorious Not Workers. I was like, that shit was smooth. And it's like when we have a problem, I'm not afraid to get dirty either. Like, what's it called? We didn't have a roller. It's like, okay, I'm in a good spot. Let's go help our people out. You know what I mean?
We're not on silver linen, but the bag is looking crazy. There's linen all over the kitchen. Like we gotta pick it up and go put it out.
It's like the biggest thing is knowing that most people. If you attack people's egos, you're going to have a huge problem. And it's like, when I'm talking to people, I'm like very considerate about how it affects them. Like I'm a very not like harsh person, but like I'm a very realistic person, but I also understand how what I say affects people. Cause like, I'm not expecting the people to be like me in that situation. So it's like, and they're starting to see little things, just being a little bit more humble, controlling your ego. Like, what's it called? And just everything about it. I was like, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Controlling your ego it's huge. I know some talks, some conversations of like, can you be successful without an ego out there?
What's your opinion?
I think that you can do things. So the ego is supposed to like keep us alive, right? It's like a self-preserving component to evolution. In this current ecological niche that we've built, where we're pretty good, like we're not, I don't have to war with the next tribe a couple of miles away or fight saber-toothed tigers or any of that type of shit. I don't have to do any of those. So for the most part today in our society, ego doesn't seem absolutely necessary on most fronts. I think that you could drop out of it and still achieve. I do think that it can be a tool because.
No, for sure.
Because because if you get your ego involved, then you can, you can pretty much manipulate like how you're going to feel with your self-talk. Now, some people speak to themselves very poorly and they're just like, yo, stop being a little bitch. Like, get the fuck over it. Like, what's wrong with you? And that's how you poke and prod your ego into like doing certain things for you.
I'm a pussy right now. I'm like,
you know what I'm saying?
I gotta lock in.
Get into that one emotion, that lock in.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so there are different ways you can use it. So it's not like people with ego, because there are people, listen, this is, I guess, what I should have prefaced this with. There are people with egos that are extremely successful, like blazing egos. There are people with blazing egos that are failures, that have not done anything that they've ever wanted to do. And they've tried to set out to do such. So both of those things matter. And then there are also people that have tried very hard to get away from their ego. And because of that, they're just relaxing.
They're blah.
Because they don't feel the need to do much.
When I was looking at it, it's like, first of all, it's like if you're like any side of like high performer in any like place, people are gonna say you have an ego, right? But the revelation came because I didn't start like really like making leaps and bounds until I started adopting that little like arrogance, that little ego. You know what I mean? Really thinking that you're like, because I'm gonna be honest, I have a huge ego. Like I like to be better than people, and I think I'm the shit at things, you know, of course. But like when you get around people who are also like that, you think that most of the time you're getting in a competition, but most of the time those are your best friends. You get you like you what's it called? You know what I mean? It's you versus them. Like, oh, you want to be better. Okay, I want to get better. We're gonna be friends. But when I first saw it was I played sports most of the time. I always go back to sports. But when I got to college, the best people always had the craziest egos. You know what I mean? Like if you've ever played college sports, you understand the ego thing. And everyone's arrogant. Everyone believes like, man, it was like, hold up, there's something here. Because the trend or like the parallel, like every person, they have a huge ego and they're super arrogant. And it's like, oh, they always think they're going to win. I was like, but I was like looking at them, I was like, maybe there's something there. Because those people, there's no doubt in their mind that they're always going to win. And they truly believe that, right? They truly believe that. They'll talk like it, they'll act like it, and they just move like that. And most of the time, they actually do it. So it's like, if you've never been around people who are like that, it's kind of like, oh, these guys are full of themselves. They think they're the best. But then I was like, but now I'm starting to really understand it because those are the only people that win. Because I usually think like, you're not going to really be successful in anything if you don't have that like violence of action to like regarding things. Like if you're a pacifist, most of the time, I look at pacifists, they're not successful at anything because they don't have it in them to just take what's, you know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, you're playing a PvP game.
Yeah, you're gonna, I mean, in a lot of fields, like a lot of things, and some things are more competitive than others, of course. But there are certain things where you're going to have to ask yourself if it's an extremely competitive field, like maybe you're trying to get like a certain IT job at a place, or it's finances, whatever the case is. There are going to be certain people that are willing to do things that maybe you're not.
Yeah, like
right,
and that's the biggest thing. I was like, going back to the self-help thing. I'm like, most people, like, I'm willing to do a lot of shit just to say I did it, and I'm like, most people aren't willing to do that.
Yeah, and it's like you're just gonna. Like there are going to be people that are going to be up first thing in the morning, or they didn't go to sleep. They're still working on that thing that they were working on the night before.
Yeah, and they don't care.
And yeah, they're still up at their office, like just going through. Like, they're going to be those people. I feel like that's happening right now with AI because it like technology moves, it advances, and then so are expectations on things. So I don't know if you've used ChatGPT much.
I want you to guess.
Yes. No, not at all.
Well, not for my work because I've established. I always say I take my bad grades like a man. So it's like I'm not. If I'm gonna write all my own shit. I'm not cheating. I'm not doing anything because that's part of my path.
Most people.
No, yeah, most people. And I was like, using ChatGPT, you're still getting worse grades than me. I'm like,
yeah, that's wild. Oh no, you can't do that. You can't do that. That's wild.
Because there's the human element.
Using ChatGPT and getting worse grades.
Because like the way most things are going now, because most professionals understand that they're going to ask for a human element. You're going to talk from your own experience. So they're looking for things. They're going to add like a content portion and then how this relates to like say your own personal experience, because they know for a fact ChatGPT, if you ask it a question, it's going to come out and blurt out a correct response in a sense. Meaning you can kind of look at some of them, you're like, yo, that person did not write that. Especially if you know the person and you're like, you know how they write and you know not their intelligence level, but like, like how much they know about things. It's like, okay, he didn't write that.
Yeah.
But it's like the human element of it is like, okay, you can kind of, that's why they kind of, I see a lot more of it in my assignments now.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Oh, like them asking for a human element, like give some
how
of your
did this relate to your experience?
That's so funny that's the advancement of some of these courses because of the advancement of artificial intelligence.
But then you can also like see it in people too, because they kind of lose that like critical thinking process. Oh, because most people are like, they have a problem or like they take the shortcut on everything. So it's like you have your homework, you don't just actually do it. You just outsource it to something else. It's like,
Bro, critical thinking. I've been talking about critical thinking for years. It's not, first of all, it's not taught, right?
No.
Like, people are not taught to think things through. You're taught to store information and regurgitate it.
Yeah.
Right? You're not taught how how to look at different things and think about them as they are in their different pieces, how those things relate to another thing, and drawing parallels between things. Like it's just you're not taught how to critically think. I will say that there were problem solving problems when we were young that like weren't. My issue with the public school system is that I think often things are not taught in a relatable way. Like they're not taught in an applicable way. Like what is this going to mean when I'm just walking around the street just being me? Like map this onto my real life somehow. Now, when we were young and they had those problem solving things, like Kathy, Nate, and Dan all go to a party, you know what I mean? And they bought 20 pizzas. Yeah. 5 of them are pepperoni and cost $3.50 and all that sort of stuff. And then they were going to put in a bunch of information that also threw you off and didn't matter in the problem solving. Like those were meant to exercise critical thinking in people. Like that's what it was meant to do. And I feel like we should have like more of those. Like there should be, like, I know when I talk to like college students that go and they find sociology or psychology or some sort of class where there's an open forum and everyone's debating different ideas, usually sociology or philosophy, of course, they find it to be so like such a breath of fresh air, so refreshing, because that's probably the first time in their life where you are asked to just think of things and then debate it with this person and have this person say something that you don't like. Yeah. And this is just like, you're like, whoa, what the fuck is going on? Like, I have to really think about things. Did you ever watch, what's his name? Something Crowder? Is it Dan Crowder?
Oh, Steve Crowder.
Steve Crowder.
Thank Steve. I'm pretty sure. It's one of those names.
Definitely Steve. He used to do this thing called Change My Mind.
Oh, yeah, Change My Mind on controversial topics.
Yeah. So he was employing the Socratic method, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I'm just going to ask you questions to figure out why it is you think you know what you think you know, right? So he would have some banner up and it would be like, affirmative action is racist or something like that. And then he'd be like, come change my mind. Like, come sit down and talk to me. Some of them were more civil than others.
Most of them were emotional as hell.
Yeah, it was a lot of very emotional things. And that's mostly due to the case that people do not have the emotional regulation to just objectively look at a situation and try to parse the bits out and talk about it. But it's the critical analysis of things. You were taught you see a headline or you see something and you adopt it. You don't ask questions like, who wrote this? Where is this data coming from?
Source, I made it up.
Yeah, like, you don't even think about any of that stuff. You just go along with it. So critical thinking is hard
and I feel like a lot of people subscribe to the ideology of, say, you're a left or you're right. You know what I mean? On left or right. So like when you look at things, it's like we said earlier, there's no right answer to most things. There's only trade-offs. So it's like, if I'm looking at a situation, I can't just apply an entire democratic view to the entirety of a problem. Because in reality, that's not the right answer and there's no right answer. So I guess a lot of these people, it goes back to like our tribal sense or whatever. So it's like most people want to be a part of a team. Like that's what I was like, we were talking earlier about like, we don't follow sports and like, I don't understand what it means to like follow a sports team and be emotionally invested in a sports team you don't play on. But I feel like a lot of those people are looking for that in something, right? Mm-hmm. And whether it be their political, like what's it called, leaning or a sports team, they're looking for that.
Religion, so like it all kind of meshes together.
And it's like it comes like you don't even listen to the facts. You just kind of what we believe is what we believe, and we don't ask questions. Mm-hmm. And that's what I think about most things. It's like if I think about something, it's like, why do I believe this rather than am I supposed to believe this? And it's like, especially in the psychology and all those fields, they're kind of idealized, especially in college or like what's it called? They're ideologically like driven. Mm-hmm. So like if you have a right leaning stance in those classes, you're probably in the minority, and maybe your grades in jeopardy, or what's it called? Or your reputation is in jeopardy. Like you can get canceled for saying stuff there that would be a problem. I would think.
That's tough.
Because I think it would be a problem because like even like now, like like I mean we're not like terrible people, but like we have some like we're real people and we have some beliefs that like most people don't believe in. So it's like you're always running. Like I always found that like if I'm truly speaking my mind, I'm not like stuttering or doing anything, but I'm always having that like filter in my mind where I'm like not dumbing things down, but I'm censoring some of the like the crazy things, right? Because like, you know, when you go with your boys, right? It's like when, like what's it called? Like when, say Trump got in trouble for something, right? And then I would like text in our group chat and I'll be like, yo, he's just some shit like we would say, you know what I mean? It's like, and he's getting in trouble. Not like saying like, but like along the same lines, like the locker room talk with boys. It's like if you were a boy and you were saying like, people just say what they want because they're with their boys. You can say whatever you want to. And it's like, of course, you need to understand where you are and how people are going to perceive it. But it's like, yo, these are things that like most people are saying, but you can't say them out loud.
For sure.
So it's like
the world is a stage.
Yeah, of course.
It is one big theater for sure. And they're just, but that's what's interesting about the whole game of politics is simply understanding how people and things move.
It's popularity contest.
And like how to climb ladders, how to, you know, like when it's okay to burn a bridge, if you ever need to, when you need to compromise some of your integrity to help someone else do something because you're going to, you know, get something on the back end a year or two later or something like that.
People pleasing.
It's just like, that's what politics is. So it's, most of the time you have to understand that you're watching a play. Like you're just watching theater.
That's what I'm saying. That's why I don't even watch the news. I never, like, that was the biggest thing. I was like, when you stop getting emotionally invested in things you have no control over. Like, I don't watch the news. I only watch positive things. I mean, of course, like, you know what I mean? Like, I only do the things, not necessarily, but I only talk to the people I want to talk to. And like, I don't need to be like running around.
Yeah, I think because there's so much content and there's so much data we can access, people feel like they need to access it because it's there. It's like, well, it's there. Like, I gotta watch it. I gotta see it. And some people don't know what they would do if they put all of that away. Like, what would my life be? I had a friend say this to me. He was like, I don't even remember what I was doing before Twitter came out. He was like, I legitimately don't remember.
It's like TikTok for
like, it's like what I was. Like, was I just looking at the road when I was driving? It's like, well, that would have, exactly. Like, well, yeah, maybe you were paying more attention when you were driving the car, but like, people forget that there was a life without all of this. So they just like, you're constantly consuming. And sometimes you are not aware of how these things are impressing upon you. Like, you don't know. And I've gone on cleanses from things completely and seen noticeable differences in the things that I would think about or, just mostly the things that were on my mind and how I would feel and how I would interact with other people. And I've just been interested in, I wish I could just take people and do experiments. Yeah. To be like, who would you be if I just took this genre of music away from you for 6 months? Like, who would you be if I took the news away from you for 6 months? Like, what would happen to your mental health? What would you talk about? Because some people, you talk to them and they only talk about like a couple of things. Because that's where as you're saying, that's where their identity lies. And whatever ideological stuff that they're mixed up in, that's all they're going to talk to you about. So it'd be like, man, I wonder who you would be if I just took if I took those 3 podcasts away from you for a year. Like, what would you have to say? Like, what would you have to think about if you weren't, sourcing this information from this one hub or these 2 hubs? You gotta be aware of those things. I've definitely felt like I've needed some grounding at certain points and been like, I'm just gonna lay low from all these things and just see what like an organic Earl is. Yeah. that doesn't feed in to these things at all.
One thing in my book club, one of the last questions in the development plan that like when I was creating, I was like, we know we live in this time. Like, I never like really agreed with people just getting rid of Instagram or whatever. It's like, let's learn to use it in moderation, right? Because the world's only going to, especially like when parents are like, I'm going to take away all the technology from my kids. And first of all, you're just setting them up for failure because they're only going to live in a technological world, right? The people who succeed are the people who can use technology. So I was like, how can we make this work? So I was like, okay, what do? I was thinking like, let's have a content absorption goal, right? So it's like, if you follow the algorithm is not necessarily malicious. It just shows you things that you look at, right? So it's like, if you only watch cat videos, you're only gonna get cat videos or really like dog videos. So it's like, how can I curate my algorithm to only show me things that move me forward in life? So I'm looking at it. I'm like, So like when I go on my TikTok, right, I see memes, right? I like memes. If you don't know me, like I post memes on my private story, like because like that's what me and my boys do. Like that's like we share our positivity. Like so it's memes, like motivational content, and like maybe like the occasional like sports or something. You know what I mean? It's nothing negative or nothing taking me off the path, like riling me up. It's all propelling me. Like I'll even go on TikTok and I'll see you scroll a few times. It's David Goggins calling you a pussy, and you're like, oh man, I'm turn that shit off. Go do something productive, right? Yeah. And I'm like, okay. So it's like I'm using my tools to my advantage. I'm not using them to dampen me or anything.
Yeah. You gotta be very.
You watch the video, and you're like, oh. He's like,
yeah.
Are you? It was like, yo, not like. It was like, oh, it's like you're not using your time correctly. I'm like, oh, gotta put it down.
Yeah, that's funny. Which is funny too, because there's a paradox in that.
Yeah,
there's a paradox in that you picked up your phone. And it was something motivational or something that you subscribe to, and the thing at the same time is telling you go do something better.
Yeah,
so it's like, damn, I picked up the phone for the phone to tell me to go do something else. Like, so there's something paradoxical in that. It's like like you said, you're using it, and they're on there trying to get you off of it.
Of course,
which is pretty cool. Yeah, it's pretty cool when you have leaders that are like, yo, stop watching me so much. Go do your own thing.
And I always thought about that, like, especially going back to saving people. And it's like, I was thinking about it not earlier, but like a few weeks ago. And it was like, I couldn't give you what I did to make you better because it's not what you are going to need. And it's like, I know my personal truths, not saying necessarily they're truths, but I know what worked for me in the past and how I approach things. And if you talk to like a lot of people, like I'll listen to people talk and like they'll talk about stuff that like, I just have no idea, like, especially on the emotional side, like they'll say some shit how they felt. And I was like, it never occurred to me. You know what I mean? I'm like, it's like, I felt this way. And I was like, my mom was like, oh, you never have I feel statements. I was like, okay. She'll like text me like, your bathroom's flooded. I'd be like, okay. And I'll be like, she'll be like, what do you mean just okay? I was like, so like, what am I going to do about it? Like, I'm not home.
Everything's on analytical. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, of course, like, I mean, that was a conscious decision. Like, I'm thinking through it. Of course, my first reaction is going to be to blow up like, oh no, this, that. But like in reality, like that's when you pull out the stoicism tool. You're like, it's like the right nut. And like you pull out the wrench and you're like, okay, that works.
It's like, that's what's happening right now. Like my basement's flooded. All right. Like,
Roger that.
all right.
Okay.
Next move.
But
yeah, that's how you get through stuff. I mean, in reality, it really is. I've been talking to people about this because I've been really interested in. So one thing that I've done is I'm very like light stepper. There's always been something interesting to me about trying to see what a moment is like without me as a part of it. So in order for that to happen, or even anything remotely close, like I try to be quiet as I'm like walking through scenes because I don't want to make too much ruckus. I just want to kind of observe the situation without me interrupting it too much, if that makes any sense at all.
So like you're not necessarily disassociating, but so it's like, you know, like a common thing, like especially in like time travel in movies where like people will go back and they can see it and like they're walking through it, but no one can see that.
Exactly. Like that sort of feeling. I kind of forgot what I was headed with that one. What was it? Trying to
not disturb like how people.
Yeah, I forgot where I was going with that.
This happens all the time. Yeah. I had that earlier. I was like,
trying not to disturb this situation.
Being a quiet stepper.
Yeah.
Are you trying to like?
Oh, maybe it's we were talking about the stoicism part. Just the flow of things. This is going back to the Taoism thing. Is that when you observe situations, you realize that the situation is perfect in that the situation has no feelings.
Yeah.
You are the thing inside of it, and you and whoever else is in it has the narratives that you're telling yourself about how this thing should go, how you expect it to go, how you're going to be upset if it doesn't go this way or another. So the issue with the moment is you and your mind and what's going on. Like, but if you extract that from the situation and you're looking at it sort of like you're going back in time and you're just walking through the situation and observing it, you realize it's really just the moment happening, right? But it's just the perspectives that cause the misery inside of the situation. So when something happens, unfortunate, I 1000% understand the initial and maybe even the lingering for a lot of people sense of, fuck, this sucks. I can't believe I just crashed my car, or, my basement flooded, or I didn't get the grade I thought I was going to get, or this person rejected me. We're not going on a date anymore. Whatever that thing is. But in real life, in reality, in the realest of real lives, it's just your framing. As you said, most things are framework issues.
Yeah.
It's just your framing that is really causing the whole melancholy feel of the situation. It's really that problem. Because in reality, this thing is just happening and you just happen to be a factor in it.
Of course.
That's all that's really happening. Basement flooded, okay.
And your mind is playing a story that's not real.
Yeah, exactly.
Have you ever watched like a nature documentary? This might it was like, when I look at it, I'm like, yo, this lion just ripped the head off of this one thing. And I'm like, people always like, oh my God, this is so sad. But then it's like, if you like look at it with no emotion, it's like the most eerie thing ever. And you're like, yo, that's like just how the world is. And it's like, it sucks for the gazelle that got his head ripped off. But then the lion's like, oh, I get to live another day. And it's like,
yeah, this life is like that. It's the thing is that we're not always aware of it because we don't need to be. Like I was saying, we don't need to take in all that content just because it's there. Our minds aren't built for that. Like it's not. So, I mean, just trying to is crazy. But the amount of good things good quote unquote things that happen off of the strength of some bad shit that had to happen.
Yeah.
It would blow people's minds, like how the two play with each other. It's not just, things aren't just great because there's not a bunch of killing going on.
No, yeah, it's like, would you go back in time and kill Hitler? I was like, no. You don't know what kind of world it'll be.
It's very true.
It's like,
You can't be. Did you watch The Flash?
Yeah.
Like the movie?
I've watched the show and the comics.
So I know that he can go back in time.
Yeah, like the Reverse Flash and everything.
Yeah, anytime. And this is something that humans have intuited clearly for some reason or another, which is kind of like really amazing that humans have intuited this. That if you go back in time and try to start messing around with things, you're going to cause some wild ripple effect. Yeah, exactly. That's just going to fuck a bunch of things up in the past or in the future. So yeah, no, I don't know about going back and trying to do anything differently.
Then you open up the paradox. Like if you go back and change it, you wouldn't be here to go back and change it.
Yeah, like I might. Yeah, that's it.
So it's like,
yeah. No,
those are some walking thoughts, and you're like, let me just stop right now before I get.
Well, something I will say on that is, I feel like division is very easy, right? Especially in this day and age. We've talked a little bit about it as it goes into politics. That's very easy to see, like, oh, there's a division of politics. There can be a division amongst, as you would say, more competent people than less competent people or whatever. But there are always people that are trying to be better and are trying to be better for the sake of being better than other people. And that kind of taints the waters a little bit because it makes like being exemplary not always look so cool. Sometimes it looks very bro-like, very like, asshole-ish.
Yeah.
Kind of. I will say the intellectual thing that's a huge sort of divisive thing. The whole culture of like, I guess, get after it, get out there, be hard, stay hard, all of that. Like it, like that causes a division as well amongst people, because a lot of people start looking at other people like, you're fucking lazy, like get it together, like what are you doing down there? Go ahead.
That is probably like, when you look at other people, it's like hard to feel empathy for people when, especially when you know they're not doing like the bare minimum. And like you look at people and they're like complaining about this stuff and you're like, why is this a problem? Like I'll be at work and people are like, I went to sleep at 5 last night and I'm so tired. And I'm like, well, why'd you go to sleep at 5? You know what I mean? They're like, oh, because of this and that. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah. I think it's all just this long domino effect of things that have just been happening throughout all the ages. And we just find ourselves to be the people that are currently living right now under these situations. So all these people, Mark talked about the indomitable human spirit. Now, like, if a human wants to get through something, like, truly, like, they'll get through it.
Finding a why for the purpose, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I don't know. I've felt very skeptical of someone being able to, like, flip a switch to just start grinding or start living in some altered, like, elevated way. I don't know if every human just has this ability to at any moment do this thing.
This is actually so funny because, like, I think about it like that. So, like, I always, like, have, like, I call them programs, right? So, like, to attack different things might be in my social program, but, like, I have, like, my warrior, like, I call it Spartan program. So, like, yesterday, like, I had a track meet, right? And, like, I was practicing, like, so it's like, oh, I'm feeling all this, like, self-doubt, like, I'm on the line. But, like, on the line, I need to be that person. I need to be a Spartan. I can't be scared of anything. So I'm like, that's the way I think of it. So I'm like, I'm not worried about it right now, but I know for a fact I need to, when I step there, I'm flipping that switch, right? And I'm going into that mode where, like, you see red and you're going straight there. It doesn't matter who you're racing, who's on the other side. It's like, that's like, I'm flipping that Spartan switch, right? And, like, that was what I was practicing. Like, I know I felt like, oh, like, what's going to happen, all this. And I was like, oh, but I can take some, like, peace. And I'm like, oh, I'm not worried about it. I'm just going to flip the switch when I get there. And that was the practice for it. And I was like, okay, that yesterday was pretty successful on that. I mean, the outcome wasn't great, but, like, I was like, I don't care anymore. I was like, I do care, but, like, I don't care about the outcome. I was like, okay, now I have that. I know I can do that. And, like, I can use that later in somewhere. So there is a switch that I think, it's just like, people call it flow state, all this stuff. But there is a switch that, like, if you're pretty good at it, you can control your, like, but, like, I have a pretty good adrenal response to most things. So, like, I know for a fact if I like go just ride my bike for 20 minutes, I'm getting in that zone. And then that stress hits or something, or like a stimulus, I know for a fact I'm going to respond.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty good at that.
Yeah.
I would say.
Yeah. Familiarity with oneself and understanding how you work is paramount.
Oh, no, for sure.
And I feel like it most certainly does give you insight into other humans. But it would be so interesting to just know, like, what is it like
to be someone
else? Like, what does it look like in there? Like, what are the conversations? Is it just, I can only imagine the noise that's just playing, like, just constant. Like, some people's minds, I look at them and they hear him talk and I feel like it's like a circus. Like, it's just like a lot of funnel cakes and lemonade and just like mirror houses and clowns and shit. Like, I'm like, man, it seems like it's like nonstop, wild, like incessant, just shit exploding and just sirens going off. Yeah, like, I couldn't understand what it's like. So I think about the things that I do that may be different than the experiences that other people are dealing with. I was just like, I don't even know. Like, giving advice, I don't know. It all seems so unattractive to me now because I don't know.
That's what I was
like how I could possibly.
Because I've seen you talk to people. I'm like, yo, this man is good.
Yeah, I'm just
but like the few people who have listened, or like I had this one friend, like he's going down a bad path, and like flat up told him was like, you're being like, he was like talking like, oh, I have confidence issues, all this, and I was like, first of all, the reason you have confidence issues because like you're like low key a loser, right? It's like you have like no reason to feel confident about anything because you haven't done anything. You haven't
given yourself.
No, you're like you're just sitting there feeling bad for yourself. I mean, like, first of all, school shouldn't be a problem, right? Because if you're truly being accountable for your time, right? You have a lot of time, especially if you're not playing a sport, right? You have a lot of time. You're using all the resources there's like that are provided to you. Like most of the time, all these resources are free with tuition. I mean, tuition is the money, but like all these resources, you can get tutors, you can do all this. And if you're using all your time wisely and if you were truly trying your best, you would never fail a class. There's like no reason you should ever do it because like, I mean, like for a fact, I've never been to a teacher's office hours, but like if I was failing class, there's no reason why you shouldn't be there. And I feel like some people, like most of the time, everyone throughout his life has told him, oh, this or that, the reason why, oh, it's okay, it's all this. And I was like, its problem was you in the first place. And but like some people that most people will not respond well to that because it's an ego thing. It's like, oh, you're just telling me I'm a loser. But he did. And now he's actually doing a lot better. I mean, not like he's doing great now.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, he's still battling that self-talk. And of course, I always think about it as like the self-talk. Like I've been trying to do this for years and it's just starting now to click. Like I was thinking about, like you were talking about seeing stuff from other people's point of perspective, especially like when some shit goes down, shit that doesn't. It's like I always feel like I have a pretty good rebound, but it's because of like the program that I installed like over 5-6 years. And it's like, but imagine that in a negative light, right? So even if a positive thing can be turned around to a negative really fast just by your internal talk. And sometimes I take pride in like, especially like with losing, because I always feel like I could play sports at a high level, but be on the losing side of sports. So it was like, especially with losing. So it's like, I'm going to act, especially like, okay, first thing, head up. Then I'm going to act how, like, I'm going to act how people look at you and like, oh, that motherfucker did not act how I would act in that situation. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So it's like, you can take pride. Like that was part of being a badass. A badass would get kicked in the face and be like, oh, okay. Yeah. And just walk off like nothing happened. I thought that was pretty cool. And that's the story that you were talking about. Like the Rogan clip a long time ago, and he was like, be the main character in your story. And it's like, what if someone was following you around with the camera crew, right? Mm. It's like, in the movie when like people in their down times and like people are like following them around. It's like, what would you be doing in that situation? And I was like, okay, that's pretty cool.
What would you be doing?
Because it's like, Alex Hormozi talked about too. It's like you wanted to build a great person, right? When you wouldn't put them through easy challenges, you would throw them in the hell. I mean, throw them through hell and watch them come out. So I was like, oh, that's pretty good. And that's where I kind of look to, like, and everything's going bad. I'm like, okay, this is either a test or I'm just training, Mm-hmm. So that's how I look at most things.
Yeah. Another thing that is also cliche in self-help is just the lessons learned from the losses, the wins, the experiences, whatever the case is, that it's always there. Like a lesson to be learned is truly always in every single situation. And you can just choose to blow that off and that would be the opposite of the accountability. If you don't want to take the accountability, then you put it on something else. And then that way you don't have to learn that lesson at that point in time. Because
that's what I was telling you about, like, especially because we're both African Americans. Mm-hmm. And like people always ask is like, oh, have you experienced like all this? And I'm like, oh, first of all, we grew up in Fairfax, Virginia. We understand, but still, I was raised to not care about that. Mm. And I was like, I always said, like, I think I told you that was like competence cures racism. Cause it's like, I've been in most spaces. Like I always say, I can speak all the languages, right? I can go to the hood. I can talk, you know what I mean? Mm. I can go to the golf course and talk, you know what I mean? And everyone always treats me with respect, but I think it's more of how I carry myself rather than, because I never thought that I was on a lower playing field. Cause like I just always performed either at or better than those people, because like you'd just be stupid. Yeah, but like say you were a white dude or like and a black dude came and he was better than you at everything you did. It was like, there's no way this person's a genetically subhuman, inferior person. You're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
But like a lot of times people use that as an excuse. So like my half sister had a baby and like they were talking. He's like, I saw her yesterday. It's like, oh yeah, my dad's like, so was being accountable because it's like, or kept her accountable about working out because she was using the excuse that she had a baby that, oh, I don't have to do these things now. It's because I had a baby, my body's changed. And I was like, we can't use that as an excuse. We got to get back after it. Mm-hmm. So I was like, okay, that was pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting when something, this is kind of what I'm talking about with like reality. When something doesn't bother you, like it's not a part of your world. Like you don't, it's not an issue because in your mind, it's not an issue. Now, if someone's chasing after you with a gun, it's going to feel a lot more real at that point. But if there are just people in a room and you feel like, or someone else feels like this person's racist or they don't have the greatest of energies about them, whatever the case is, if they're not coming to hurt you and your people, you know what I mean? So it's like so if it's not a problem, if it does not arise in your consciousness because you're not looking around or you're not paying attention or you're not reading into a situation thinking, oh, this person probably gave me this look because of my skin color. Like if that's not even on your mind,
it's like,
then it's not happening. It's not even like it could be happening. And if it is, then it is, but I wouldn't know because I'm doing this other thing. I'm involved in whatever it is I'm doing. So like, that's not even a stress on my mind. I don't think about it.
Yeah, and it's like, because we can talk to people who grew up with real racism, like especially like my family, my grandparents. Like I'll tell them some stuff, and they'll be like, "What? Like all this?" And I'm like, "It's like no, like I'm really like I'm on their level or better most of the time." Like and they're like, "What?" Like you know what I mean? Because they still have that framework where they grew up when that shit was actually like super real.
Yeah, very.
It's like
very
when we
real.
have it, like that's nothing, bro. It's like
Yeah,
And I grew up playing Xbox. Like I mean, we grew up in the like, where is it just like?
Yeah, it's fascinating, like how little it. Like this is kind of the eternal being thing I was saying. So we don't even have to talk about someone that's 200, 300, 400 years old. When you're 80, you don't give a shit about any of this stuff that anyone's talking about. You don't care. There's just life just continues to happen. At a certain point, you become more and more okay with your ultimate insignificance, right?
Pull out the nihilism tool out the toolbox.
Yeah, exactly.
We're on a spinning ball, and
you're fatalist.
The sun's gonna blow up in a billion years, and nothing matters.
Nothing matters. So you're much less concerned about how people feel about you. You know, you're not like 80, just like, oh, I hope that nobody laughs at me when I wear these Crocs outside, or like you don't care.
Your Crocs, no ashy ankles, nothing. You just walk.
You do not care. So you realize that a lot, and probably most for some people, of their actual suffering is just due to a malfunction in the framework in which they're seeing any given moment. It's simply that. Like there's not like a real danger about the situation. It's just you're upset that you think that someone across the room is looking at you maliciously because they have these set of ideals. That's just in your mind. And it could be true, but it could also just not be true. They could have just also taken a bite of something that wasn't good. And they just have you never know what moment you're catching some people in, and then you're reading into it.
Some people just look like that.
And some people just look like that. So if you talk to people long enough, you'll see dips in rises. You'll see their emotion and their personality arise, and you'll be like, "Oh wow, I thought you were so mean before." But if you give people time, you start to see the holism of a human. We make people 2D, one dimensional, like just like too often, like very linear.
Well, it was like you look at. Nah, I'm gonna mess it up, but it was basically on the lines. You look at other people like they're not you. Like you'll give yourself the benefit of the doubt. So say you fail at something. Oh well, I had this happen. You give yourself or you're feeling bad for yourself. You give yourself the benefit of the doubt, and everyone's like, but they always forget that when you look at other people. And especially in the serving world, like you would have a group of people who would come in and they're already mad. Like you can already sense the tension. You know what I mean? So
every day.
Yeah. So it's like, oh, okay, maybe people actually other people do live their own life. So it's like I always thought okay, these are like when you got to lock in because it can go very bad. People are already in their own. But then if you kill them with kindness and you're like the best part of your day, you're like, oh, I like this person.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, flowing is the best way I can look at it. I just simply say, sort of like people are kids. Whatever world you're in, it's what it is. It's like when you are finding these badasses, right, that are going to be a part of your cult and stuff like that. My friend Mikey talks about it. It's a language that starts to happen. So you start talking to someone or you start hearing someone and you start to hear within the language that you all both speak certain keywords that they use, certain ideals, certain concepts. And if it links up enough to the language that you speak at a high level, then you're like, oh, like there's something going on over here. So you were talking about, quote unquote, maybe dumbing things down, or
it was more of the censorship.
Yeah, or censoring something until you're around someone and you guys slowly start playing like this language game where you're saying a little bit and then they're saying a little bit, and then you realize that they have a certain level of understanding in something. So then you say a little bit more about it, and then you're like, oh, okay, all right,
I can say this word now.
Yeah, exactly. You're like, okay, all right, we can do this thing. it's a funny little like social dance
Yeah.
that happens between
So
people.
you're vetting people, and
Just,
it's like,
you're
it's
like you're figuring out what level you're going to have a conversation with this person on,
you'd
because
be like ultra surface level, and we're gonna talk about some. I call it real shit.
yeah,
It's like I like to like all of my friends. I only consider you my friend if we can have a podcast talk. That's what I say. Like a talk like this right now. Like I only like talking about real shit. Like of course we're gonna have our little like, oh, this food is good, but like, you know what I mean? But like, or we'll talk about some memes, but at the end of the day, we're gonna talk about some real shit. And that's why like, but like you have to have like a certain quality of person to do that, because most people just like, you know what I mean? If you're only talking about the Kardashians, like that's all we can talk about.
well, yeah. I mean, I've my dad, instilled that in me. He was like, "Oh, you want to be open to talking about whatever. Just remain open, because you never know what doors that opens. Learn a little bit about everything. At least, stay inquisitive, ask questions, but just be able to stay fluid and
Not jumping to conclusions before they even say anything.
Yeah, don't be too rigid.
Because like when you go to a table and they look mean as hell, and then they end up being the nicest people on the planet.
Yep. Yeah. You don't want to meet any seeming meanness.
That's what I'm saying.
With meanness.
And I'm also I'm almost like wary of super nice people too, most of the time too, because they're almost hiding it.
Yeah.
It's I can sense it a lot when it's in there.
I think that's the fear behind clowns.
Really?
Yeah, I do. I think that the reason why people, I mean, I know everyone's not, but there's like people are afraid of clowns. Like it's like a thing.
It was like the chapter's like, guess it was like, I never understood being afraid of clowns.
I think it has something to do with the frozen smile, like this frozen big smile. And it's like, I understand that being happy and cheerful is cool, but you're frozen in this state, which is unnatural. And so same way you're thinking, the person that's constantly trying to be bubbly and like in your face and like overtly positive, you're just kind of like, what's going on? My friend used to say that about Ellen DeGeneres. He was like, I can't trust her. He was like, she's too happy, man. Like she's constantly like, as soon as the show comes on, she's happy. You've never seen her in a state where she's not. Now, I have. Like, you just have to watch more of her stuff.
Yeah.
I saw like a Letterman interview. I think she did like a David Letterman interview, and that one got pretty deep. But yeah, I mean, I get that understanding of there being something untrustworthy about someone that you feel like is constantly trying to put on
a show.
in front of you.
I think you can sense authenticity in people. That's the biggest thing. Because like when I look at people and like, you can just see how they act. Like it was like, not that I was being mysterious. It's like, I didn't feel the need to go up and try to please you. Like, of course, it's like over time, you know what I mean? My character will speak for it and we'll end up talking just because I used to, I was like, I didn't talk to Tony for like a long time because it was like, I talked to her. I was like, what's it called? What did I say? When I saw her and I was like, oh, he was like, yeah, I was the guy. I was like, I would just go clean your table, not say anything and walk away. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because I was just doing my job until I like vetted her until like when she said something, I was like, oh, she was like talking about finance. And she said, we both like, actually this shirt is from the Nick Bear podcast. She was talking about, I was like, oh, it was like, you know about that too? And I was like,
nice.
And I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, that's how it starts. It's just like these small little things and they pique your interest.
Like, hold up.
Yeah, you're like, all right, let's get into that a little bit.
This is like when I first met you, what's it called? One thing I really remember is like, you remember that time when the lady didn't give you all the money or whatever?
Yeah.
And I was like, and we both joked about it. We're like, oh, it's okay. Like, and then it's like, because we were both very mature. Like, oh, it was almost funny. Like, it's funny if it's not happening to you, but it was funny.
It was funny.
It was like, I thought it was funny.
It's funny because it's funny. Regardless if it happens to me or someone else.
It was funny. It was just a funny thing. It was like, you get to the back of the pile, you're like, this is it.
This is half the money that is necessary.
But then they were like, okay, management took care of it. And it was like, there's no reason to get mad about it. And I was like, I remember very specifically, it's like, oh, it's okay. It'll come back. You know, you'll come back in someone else. And the next day or whatever, the next time we were working, she came back and you were like, it actually came.
She actually.
But like, in the time I was meaning, it was like, it's going to come back in someone else's tip.
Yeah,
and it's like, you're going to get a 40% tip on someone else's tip to make up for that one. Yeah. Because I always feel like I always made the same amount of money no matter what happened.
Yeah, it all evens out.
Yeah. Like, so I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
But that was just the funniest thing. So it's like most people in that situation, most people, they get an 18% tip and they're like, pissed.
Livid.
Yeah. And I'm like, I see this dude come up and he's like, oh, they gave me half the money to just even pay for it, not even a tip. And he's just chilling. Like, you know what I mean? He's not fazed by it. Of course, I know that there was like a split second in your head. You were like,
You're
fuck.
like, damn.
But
yeah,
like,
I gotta pay for this. Like,
yeah, but of course. And then he's like, oh, yeah. It's like, I was like, oh, it's like, that's a bad motherfucker right there. And like, I knew that when I trained you. I was like, first I was like, why am I training this person? This person already knows what he's doing. But of course, it was like, I always remember talking about the human aspect. You could just chop it up with the table, right? I can teach you to say what to say, how to say it, but like at the end of the day, if you're not a robot, it was like you already knew how to connect with people, right? We had an older couple, you were talking to them. I don't remember exactly what they were talking about. It was something about food or something, but you were talking to them about it and you're just connecting to them and actually just flowing, right? And I was like, oh, this kid's gonna be good.
Yep.
Not a kid because he's way older than me, but like,
yeah. But I mean, ultimately, that's sort of how I see it. The intentions and interactions mean a lot. So because I'm not someone that is constantly trying to also shove my perspective down your throat, it's a lot of it's the same thing you're saying, is not having to feel the need to get your point across or to let someone know who you are. And that gives a whole lot more room for openness and for fluidity, freedom in a interaction.
And
with
it's
someone.
Badass.
Yeah.
You're confident in your frame.
Yeah.
Like we were talking about Sasuke that one day.
Sasuke. Yeah. Itachi. It's my man.
Oh yeah. That was the first time we talked. I was like, all right, this is such a drag. When we
Such a drag.
Say that's a joke. Yeah. I was like, oh, it was funny.
But yeah, I think that's the best thing, is you just navigating in your natural way. There's just things because I know for myself in particular, it hasn't been the things that people say and like the answers that people give. I've watched people and the things that maybe they don't even know about themselves, or like the intricacies or nuances into the way they do things. And you'll point something out to someone and be like, hey man, like the way that you do this thing is pretty unique, or it's pretty cool. Like, and they're like, oh, I didn't even really notice it. So just watching people and watching how they move and how they interact and how they engage with a series of events, whether they be seemingly fortunate or unfortunate, just seeing how they deal in those situations, is you can learn a lot from that.
Yeah, I think when you look at people, I remember just training people. I trained a lot of people at that time. And like, I would just like, especially like when they go up to a table, I would look at their tendencies, right? So like, I could see like a lot, like people like holding their like tray or whatever, and you can just see the shaking, right? So like, I'm thinking at that time, I'm like, okay, we got to go tell this person. Like one thing that I always tell people, like not to be like, so they stop feeling anxious. All right, go make a mistake. You know what I mean? And then like, first of all, like nothing matters. You're like, we're going to go make a mistake, or we're going to go do it. And, or we're going to role play. Like we did a lot of role playing. That wasn't like, I made that.
Yes.
We did a lot of role playing because you can practice without feeling the heat of everything. So it was like, even like when we got sat and then like we did we're not going back. We're gonna go do another role play, and just like getting things, or just like practicing what we're actually gonna practice.
You're getting reps in.
Yeah, just getting the reps in, because like everything gets exponentially better. It's like your first shift's gonna suck ass, then this next one's gonna suck ass a little bit less, and then you get to that point where it's like, I remember like, and all my shifts got better. If you're learning from every shift got better till the day I left, because everything gets smooth. You understand, oh, maybe I need to be a little bit more cognizant of my time here. Maybe I need to take more time here. It's like, and then I also told, I was like, forget the time stamps they put on everything. 2-minute greet, of course, we're going to always aim to do that. But it's like, you taking your time right now is going to save you a lot more time if you do that and then you fuck up and then you got to go back, get a manager, then what's it called? Then you run the risk. It was like the snowball of mistakes. It's better to take your time, have a 4-minute first round, than what's it called? Then keep trying to rush everything and forget everything. I was like telling people just to slow down and not move so fast. You can speed things up once you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay.
Yeah. There's something to that. And I was in a book that I was just reading, is that to some professional or master at what it is they do, when they try to, this is what you were talking about with the, is your shin at 45 or 35 degree. And when they start trying to tell you about how they do the thing they do, you're automatically going to sound crazy.
Yeah.
Like you're going to be speaking a different language when you go into like the fibers of what it is that you do. That's a whole different thing. So there's just some things you're not going to be able to teach when it comes to that. Like you give someone some foundation. It's like, listen, we take orders, we put the orders in. Like this is where the stuff on the thing is. All these like small things that I do or that you may see someone else do that you like, you're just going to have to learn that. Like you're just going to have to make a bunch of mistakes.
And then they're going to act like you're not going to get overwhelmed. You're not going to mess up. And I'm like, first of all, like we need to learn what to do when you do get overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Because like when you get it's like, okay, we're gonna slow everything down and we're gonna think about we're just gonna start attacking tasks that we need to get done, preferably on the time scale that are most important. So it's like first round, okay, we can do that, but like what else do we really need to do? The order that's been sitting for 10 minutes, you know what I mean?
I've seen people have it's such a visceral moment when someone's having a real breakdown.
No, for real. And it's like it went through like a period, like every Saturday, so you walk back there and someone's just bawling their eyes out. But like, you got to focus on, you got to step over and be like, yo, I got shit to do too.
You know, and God forbid they try to talk to you about what's going on. You're like, oh man, hey, listen, you know, it's tough, but yeah, somebody bawling, you know, in the back, just crying, doubled over. People like, I've seen people like start just like, what the fuck? Just like going, and you're like, whoa, like they seem violent, like very volatile. Like they might swing on someone if you say the wrong thing. You could it's the worst. You see someone, they're by like a posse system. They're trying to put stuff in. Their eyes are wide open. They have like a bunch of piece of paper in their hand with like 6 credit cards.
Yeah.
They have their book open with like orders on it. A host just came in the back and was like, hey, you just got sad at 72. Yo, and you just know like, holy, like it's about to happen right now. Like you can see them seething with steam. And it's like, oh shit.
That's what I've had that happen. Oh, we've all had that happen. But what I found was the biggest thing that I always tell people was be as neat as possible, right? It's like when you go back there and you try to read your boy handwriting and it's like, I don't know what this says. Because
if you're in that position and then you have to go back to a table and spend that time,
time, it's like
it's so wild too because it's just serving food. It's so wild that it even reaches this level
I think the hospitality and restaurant industry is probably the most stressful industry there is.
Crazy.
There's people like real war and they're just having fun, like playing ping pong and stuff.
Dude, and I came from luxury. Like once you go up to like luxury level stuff, the expectations is insane. Like when people are spending $1,000 a night to stay at the resort that, you know, you have a restaurant in and you serve there or you manage there. Like the expectations are a whole different thing.
Is what's it called? Is the linen at 45? Like, you know, little things. It was like, is there what's it called? Is the fork right there? I'm gonna take this fork at this time with the dinner spoon. It's like, oh
yeah, all of that stuff. Just like just learning a new vocabulary, like getting a bunch of stuff out of your vocabulary that can't be said.
That was so hard.
Y'all, sure.
I said,
I'll be right back. That shouldn't be that.
Let's
absolutely,
go,
sir.
Sir.
Absolutely, sir. I'll be back momentarily to blah, blah, blah.
I slid let's go slip so many times.
Yeah, let's go.
I'm like,
wait a minute. He's like, I'll have the hickory grilled chicken. You're like, let's go.
No, like,
what do you mean?
No, and they're like, what? And I'm like, oh, I mean, like, it's good. And I'm like, I had to explain it.
Let's go.
I'm like, let's go, man. And they'd be like,
that's so funny, man. That's funny as hell.
Like you slip some things and people are like, what?
I know that before we came in, because I got to shut this down so I can get ready to go to work. Because I'm about to pop
you got to go get after.
Yeah, I do. Was there, because I know that there were, I think, a few things you were trying to put together. Did we get through most of the things that you were thinking about?
My only question was the saving people.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one of those ones, man. Especially you care about people. And again, you really feel like you got like some answers in some domains of life. That can be a tough one because like those vampires, some people you're just gonna watch. You just
crash and burn, and all you can do is just watch.
Mm-hmm. That's it. You'll like get older with certain friends, and some of them don't stay at peak health, and they stop exercising, and you're just gonna have to know like, all right, I'm gonna know this person for the next 20 years. And, or not. But if I do, there's a good chance I'm just going to be watching them slowly deteriorate. Yeah, just slowly kind of die off in some way or another. Yeah, and that's just like a cross you gotta bear. It's just a reality.
Yeah, it's a reality
It's
of
a
things.
fact. Yeah. So I just it took a lot for me because I wanted people to know when you come across some good information. I feel like it's
You want to
the
share it.
initial feeling is I want to share. Like I want other people to. I went through whatever it is I went through. I want other people to know. You know that one I went through this. And this is what I'm bringing back. The hero's journey again. Like this is what I'm bringing back from going into the belly of the beast.
You
This
slayed
is-
the dragon.
This is what I found in the cave. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
After I slayed the dragon, this is the treasure. You go back and share it with the townsfolk, right? So I understand that. It's so, which is why it takes such a sage like Reserve, like your parents, to just be like, just let him go make his own mistakes. Like he seems to be doing all right, but like let
Yeah,
him.
just don't let him die.
Yeah, like don't let him die, but for the most part, let him walk through it.
Because, like, in theory, your kids should leave off where you left off. But we know that's not.
It's not always-
Because you have, like, that's what I always talk to my mom was like, how do you raise, as I plan on being wealthy? Like, that's just, like, that's what's going to happen, right? So, how do I raise a kid who's hardworking, who's disciplined, and has a whole bunch of integrity, but let them grow up in wealth? I was like, I don't know. I mean, like, you guys, like, if we didn't grow up poor, but, like,
Yeah.
they were like, I always talk about it as like, I plan on having more money than we did. Like, we never had a problem like with food or anything, like nothing. Like, we grew up in one of the richest counties in the country.
Yeah.
And like, but like, how did I turn out like this and not like some of my friends who just sit on the couch? Because it's like you see a lot of high performers and their kids are jackasses. So it's like, how do you keep that going? That's what we always talk about.
Yeah, it's tough.
But of course, it's a lead by example. They never act like they were done.
Yeah. There's this sort of trope that parents say, I want my kids to just have it easier than I did.
Yeah, because
And for certain people, I feel like that makes some sense. And then there are other people where, is that really what you want?
and it makes
Because some
sense.
of our lives were pretty easy.
Yeah.
And it's like, how easy do you want their life to be? Like, how easy are we trying to make it for them? Like, because if I had kids, I don't know if I want their life to be easier than mine. I didn't have a
Because they wouldn't
hard-
be the person that.
Yeah, like I'm not gonna just sit there and just play pranks on them constantly and try to just make their life as hard as possible. But I don't know about trying to go out of my way to make it super easy either.
No, because it's like you can't be making their life hell. But like that's why like I like attribute a lot to is like my kid like they need to play sports because that's the only place where you get to learn that stuff. And no matter where you come from, you're gonna get shit on. There's always gonna be someone better than you.
Yeah.
It's like you learn a lot of these things that you wouldn't learn. Yeah, like you can grow up in the mansion and play sports and still understand like what they mean.
Yeah, people that learn how to do something on an individual level, but then also incorporate that in a team and collaborate and cooperate, definitely grow up different. You definitely grow up much
It's like
different, whether you're in Boy Scouts or you're, you whatever it is you do. If you're in a group of people doing it, you just
You can
go
tell
off
who
to
didn't play
camps.
sports in a sense.
Yeah,
And I always had this joke, and it's like you can like back to critical thinking. It's like you can tell who don't like you can tell the people who don't know how to play chess. Because I learned like my dad taught me how to play chess when I was like 4 or whatever, right? And then I got to the point where I was beating him, and then I was like, he's like, I'm tired of teaching you things, and then you end up being better than me.
Nice, that's the goal, man.
And then what's it called? But like you can tell the people who don't know how to play chess.
You don't want to have a child and
But
them not
checkers
turn
kid.
out better than you. Like my child gotta be better.
Yeah, of course.
It's gotta be better. I can't die better than him. It's ridiculous.
Be 80.
What have you been doing here this whole time? Why am I better than you and I'm 90?
Yeah.
Doesn't make any sense.
But I guess this is like the last thing. It's like fulfilling your biological purposes will probably lead to a happy life. Like when I make goals, I'm trying to fulfill my biological purpose. Like that's where like the competitiveness comes from. And like,
You're trying to have a strong lineage.
of course, it's
Yeah.
like, so it's like you fulfill those, you're doing a pretty good job. Same thing with making habits. I'm like, if you know how you're going to react, you can kind of move around those things. So it's
Yeah.
like,
Hack that brain.
okay. Biohacking.
Rewire. Yeah,
You
do
be a
some
Huberman
rewire.
dad or whatever, like that movement. or whatever.
Yeah, facts. I got Sammer coming in next week. He's going to show me his expertise in Super Smash Brothers Melee.
Of course. Ask him about his music too. He was talking about music.
I don't know about this. Yeah, I'll ask him.
No, it's
Thank you for giving me that tip.
yeah, of course, because he was talking about losing. It was like the long conversation about like losing the passion for things or whatever. When you start to do things on a serious side, like especially happens with sports, you go to it's at some point it just becomes a job.
Yeah,
So,
I've heard of this.
But ask him about his music. He loves
Okay.
music.
Okay. All right, I will. Thank you for coming, man.
Of course.
This has been awesome.
It took a little bit. What's it called?
It took a little bit.
What's it called? We just got to deal with scheduling and stuff.
Yeah.
Because we get after it, you know.
Yeah. There's just the things going on, you know, and you're traveling, running around the country. So, yeah, it took some time, but we got it together. This has been awesome. We knocked out like 2.5 hours.
Easy peasy.
Easy.
Squeezy.
Easy. Thank you. Thank you for
problem.
coming, and thank you guys for listening. Peace.
course.
Peace, everybody.
Easy peasy, lemon squeeze.